When CEO Vivian Cross is caught dancing alone in her office at midnight by finance manager Noah Mercer, a widowed single father who stays late to avoid his empty apartment, two people discover that grief doesn't follow business hours. What begins as the most mortifying moment of her career becomes the most honest conversation of her life. But when their late-night encounters turn into something neither can name, they'll have to decide, is healing worth the risk of losing everything they've built to protect themselves? If this story speaks to you, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's begin. Noah Mercer's hands gripped the steering wheel as he sat in the Meridian Holdings parking garage, staring at the dashboard clock. 10:47 p.m. His son Ethan had been asleep for nearly 2 hours. The babysitter had texted 40 minutes ago. "All good here. Take your time. He should go home." The thought alone made his chest tighten. Noah killed the engine and climbed out, briefcase in hand, the same prop he'd been using for 3 months now, ever since the nights became unbearable. He crossed the empty lobby, nodding at the security guard who'd long stopped questioning why a mid-level finance manager needed to retrieve forgotten paperwork twice a week at nearly 11 o'clock. The elevator hummed as it climbed. Noah watched the floor numbers tick upward and told himself the same lie he'd been telling since Sarah died. Just tonight. Just one more night, and then I'll figure out how to go home without falling apart. The 14th floor should have been dark, silent. Instead, as the elevator doors slid open, Noah heard something that stopped him cold. Music. Not the tinny elevator variety, but actual music, soft, melancholic, drifting from somewhere down the executive wing. And beneath it, something else. Humming. A woman's voice, fragile and raw, like someone singing to herself when she thought no one could hear. Noah's instincts screamed at him to get back in the elevator. The executive floor after hours wasn't a place for people like him, mid-level analysts who kept their heads down and their ambitions reasonable. But his feet moved forward anyway, pulled by something he couldn't name. Curiosity, maybe. Or the simple fact that another human being was awake and struggling at nearly midnight, just like him. The hallway stretched before him, floor-to-ceiling windows on one side revealing the city's glittering sprawl. Noah followed the sound past dark conference rooms and silent office doors until he reached the corner suite. The nameplate gleamed even in the dim light. Vivian Cross, Chief Executive Officer. The door stood half open. Noah knew he should leave, turn around, go home, pretend he'd never heard anything. But through that narrow gap, he could see movement. A flash of red fabric, the arc of a bare arm. His hand touched the door before his brain could override the impulse, pushing it open just enough to see inside. What he saw made absolutely no sense. Vivian Cross, the woman who'd built Meridian Holdings from a struggling investment firm into a billion-dollar empire, who'd graced the cover of Forbes 3 times, whose reputation for calculated precision made grown executives sweat, was dancing. Not the elegant, controlled movements of a gala or charity event. This was raw, desperate. She moved barefoot across the polished floor of her office, arms wrapped around herself as if trying to hold something together that kept threatening to break apart. Her red dress, cocktail-length, designer, utterly incongruous with the late hour, swirled as she turned. And her face, Noah's breath caught. She was crying. Silent tears streamed down Vivian Cross's face as she danced alone in her office. Eyes closed, body swaying to music that sounded like it was breaking her heart with every note. She looked like someone trying to outrun a ghost, or maybe trying to catch one, like someone who'd forgotten the rest of the world existed. Then her eyes opened. For one suspended moment, Noah and Vivian stared at each other across the threshold. He watched her expression transform, shock, then recognition, then something that looked terrifyingly like shame. She stumbled, nearly tripping over her own feet as she lunged for her phone. The music cut off abruptly, leaving a silence so complete Noah could hear his own heartbeat. Vivian's voice cracked. She cleared her throat, straightening her shoulders in a visible effort to reconstruct the armor she wore during business hours. "Mr. Mercer, what are you doing here?" The CEO voice, professional, controlled. Except her hands were shaking as she bent to retrieve her shoes from where they'd been kicked beneath her desk. Noah should apologize, make an excuse, back away and never speak of this moment again. Instead, he heard himself say, "I could ask you the same thing." Vivian's fingers froze on the strap of her left shoe. She looked up at him, and Noah saw the exact moment she realized he'd witnessed everything. The dancing, the tears, the complete dissolution of the persona she maintained so carefully. "I was working late," she said, but the lie sounded hollow even to Noah's ears. "No." The word came out softer than he'd intended. "No, you weren't." Vivian's jaw tightened. She straightened, shoes dangling from one hand, and Noah realized with a start that she was shorter than he'd thought, maybe 5'6" without the 3-inch heels she always wore. Smaller, more human. "Then what would you call it, Mr. Mercer?" The challenge in her voice was undercut by the fact that her mascara had left dark smudges beneath her eyes. Noah stepped fully into the office, letting the door swing shut behind him. Every professional instinct screamed that this was career suicide, confronting the CEO alone late at night over something she clearly wanted buried. But something stronger than instinct kept him moving forward. "I'd call it the same thing I'm doing," he said quietly. "Trying not to go home." Vivian went very still. "Excuse me?" "I'm a single father." The words spilled out before Noah could stop them. "My wife died 18 months ago, car accident. And every night after I put my son to bed, after the babysitter leaves and the apartment goes quiet, He stopped, surprised by the tightness in his throat. "I can't breathe. The silence is too loud. So I come here and pretend I forgot paperwork. I sit in my office and do nothing for an hour, maybe 2, until I'm tired enough that I might actually sleep instead of just lying there remembering." The confession hung in the air between them. Noah watched Vivian's expression shift, the CEO mask slipping, revealing something raw and aching underneath. "How old is your son?" Her voice had changed, softer, almost gentle. 4. He asks about his mom every day, wants to know when she's coming home. Noah's laugh was bitter. "I've explained death 100 different ways. He still doesn't understand why Mommy went away and never came back." Vivian's hands clenched around her shoes. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, so quietly, Noah almost missed it. "My daughter was 6. The past tense hit Noah like a physical blow. He opened his mouth, but Vivian continued before he could find words. 5 years ago, August 14th, she moved to the window, staring out at the city lights. There was a trip, family vacation. My husband had been planning it for months. Beach house, sailing, quality time. Her reflection in the glass looked ghostly. I canceled at the last minute. Board meeting, merger details, work. Noah's stomach dropped as understanding crashed over him. "They went without me," Vivian continued, her voice eerily calm. "Jacob took Emma anyway. Said it would be a special father-daughter adventure. They never made it to the beach house. Semi-truck crossed the median on Highway 101. Investigators said they died instantly. Ms. Cross, I was in a conference room arguing about stock options when my husband and daughter died." Vivian turned from the window, and Noah saw something in her eyes that he recognized from his own mirror. Guilt, the kind that never quite let you go. "I missed their last breakfast, their last goodbye. I chose a PowerPoint presentation over the last time I would ever see my family." It wasn't a choice, Noah said, but Vivian cut him off with a sharp laugh. "Of course it was. Every decision is a choice." She gestured around her office, the awards on the walls, the view of the city, the physical manifestation of everything she'd built. "I chose this, and they paid the price." Noah took a step closer. "You couldn't have known." "No." Vivian's voice turned hard. "But I did know what mattered. I knew my daughter wanted me at her ballet recital more than she wanted a bigger house. I knew my husband had stopped asking me to come to bed because I always said in an hour and then forgot. I knew I was missing their lives. I just thought I had more time to fix it later." The pain in her voice was so familiar it made Noah's chest ache. "After Sarah died," he said slowly, "I spent 6 months convinced I should have known. Should have made her take the car instead of her bike that morning. Should have insisted on driving her myself. Should have..." He stopped, shaking his head. "My therapist finally asked me when I'd developed the ability to see the future. Pointed out that I was giving myself credit for powers I didn't have, just so I'd have someone to blame." Vivian's eyes met his, sharp and searching. Did it help? Knowing it's not my fault? Noah's smile was sad. Not really. Ethan still cries for his mother. I still wake up reaching for someone who isn't there. The logic doesn't change the feeling. No, Vivian agreed softly. It doesn't. They stood in the middle of her office, two near strangers bound by the same impossible weight. Outside, the city continued its endless motion, cars on distant streets, lights in other buildings, lives moving forward. Inside, time seemed suspended. August 14th, Noah said finally. That's today. Vivian's expression flickered. Yes. And you come here every year? Every year. She set her shoes down on the desk with careful precision. I tell myself I'm going to skip it, move on, let it go. Then the date gets closer, and I can't be home. Can't be anywhere they used to be. So I come here, to the one place they never were, and She trailed off. Dance, Noah finished. Yes. Vivian wrapped her arms around herself again. Jacob and I met at a wedding. He asked me to dance, and I said I didn't know how. He said that was perfect because neither did he. A small, painful smile crossed her face. We were terrible, but we didn't care. For 3 minutes, we just moved together and laughed and forgot to be self-conscious. And Emma? Emma loved to dance, tutus and twirls and spinning until she got dizzy. Vivian's voice broke slightly. She'd make up routines in the living room and insist we all watch. I was always too busy, always promising I'd see the next one. Noah understood then. The dancing wasn't celebration. It was penance. An annual ritual of remembered joy turned to punishment. I put Ethan to bed tonight, he heard himself say, and he asked me to sing Sarah's lullaby. I tried, got 3 words in before I had to stop. He met Vivian's gaze. I told him I had a sore throat. He's 4. He believed me. Something shifted in Vivian's expression. Recognition, maybe. Or just the relief of being seen by someone who understood. She moved to a small cabinet near her desk, pulling out 2 glasses and a bottle of whiskey Noah suspected rarely saw daylight. This is wildly inappropriate, she said, pouring 2 fingers into each glass. Drinking with an employee, in my office, after hours. I won't tell if you won't. Noah accepted the glass she offered. Vivian raised her own in a mock toast. To inappropriate coping mechanisms. To surviving another day. Noah took a sip, felt the burn, welcomed it. They drank in silence for a moment. Then Vivian said, "You should go home, Mr. Mercer. Your son needs you." "He's asleep, and it's Noah." "Noah." She tested the name, nodded. "Even so, it's late." "So is your dancing." Noah gestured to the empty office. "Were you finished, or did I interrupt the whole routine?" Vivian stared at him, and Noah saw the exact moment she realized what he was offering. Not judgment, not pity, just company. Someone to share the weight for a little while. "You don't have to—" "I know." Noah set down his glass. "But I'm a widower standing in his CEO's office at midnight, drinking whiskey and discussing dead spouses. I think we're past the point of professional boundaries." A surprised laugh escaped Vivian, small and raw and utterly genuine. "Fair point. So," Noah held out his hand. "May I join you?" Vivian looked at his outstretched hand like it was the most dangerous thing she'd ever been offered. And maybe it was. An invitation to be honest. To stop performing. To let someone see the grief she kept so carefully hidden. "There's no music," she said. "We don't need music." "I'm terrible at this." "So am I." Noah kept his hand extended. "But I think that's kind of the point." Vivian's fingers trembled as she reached out, her hand sliding into his. Noah felt the contact like an electric shock. Not romantic, but human. Real. The first genuine connection he'd felt since Sarah died. He stepped closer, placing his other hand carefully on Vivian's waist. She rested her free hand on his shoulder, and they began to move. No rhythm, no technique. Just 2 broken people swaying in slow circles while the city glittered through the windows behind them. "I haven't done this since the funeral," Vivian whispered. "Me neither." They moved in silence for a while, finding a rhythm that had nothing to do with music and everything to do with shared understanding. Noah could feel Vivian shaking, whether from tears or exhaustion or simply the effort of holding herself together, he couldn't tell. "I'm supposed to be strong," she said finally. "The board, the investors, the employees, they all need me to be unshakable. If they knew I spend one night a year falling apart in my office, they'd know you're human. They'd know I'm weak." Noah pulled back slightly, meeting her eyes. "My son saw me cry last month. Really cry. Not the quiet, hidden kind, the ugly, can't breathe kind. I thought I'd traumatized him. Thought I'd failed as a father." He paused. "You know what he did?" Vivian shook her head. "He patted my cheek and said, 'It's okay, Daddy. Sad is okay.' Then he crawled into my lap and we just sat there until I could breathe again." Noah's smile was sad. 4 years old, and he already knows something most adults forget. Grief isn't weakness, it's just love that has nowhere to go. Vivian's face crumpled. She pressed her forehead against Noah's shoulder, and he felt her tears soak through his shirt. He didn't tell her to stop, didn't offer empty platitudes, just kept moving, kept holding on, while she let herself break in a way she probably hadn't allowed since the day of the accident. They danced until Vivian's tears slowed, until the shaking subsided, until she could breathe evenly again. "Thank you," she whispered, not lifting her head. "For what?" "For not running, for not pretending this isn't happening, for—" She stopped, straightening finally. Her mascara was a disaster, her hair had come loose from its careful updo, and her eyes were red-rimmed. She looked nothing like the polished CEO who commanded boardrooms. "For being here," Noah released her carefully, stepping back. "For what it's worth, Ms. Cross." "Vivian." "Vivian," he nodded. "For what it's worth, I think your husband and daughter would be proud of you. What you've built. What you've survived." Vivian's smile was small and devastating. "I wish I could believe that." "Give it time. I'm told it gets easier." Noah picked up his briefcase from where he'd dropped it by the door. "Though personally, I think easier is a myth people tell themselves." "What do you think it gets?" Noah considered. "Different. It gets different. Some days are terrible. Some days are just hard. And occasionally there's a day that's almost okay. And tonight? Tonight is—" Noah paused at the threshold, looking back at Vivian standing alone in her office, still barefoot, still vulnerable. "Tonight is the first time in 18 months I didn't feel completely alone." Something flickered in Vivian's expression. Hope, maybe, or just the possibility of it. "Noah?" She took a step toward him. "Would you—" She stopped, shook her head. "Never mind. It's inappropriate." "I think we've established that inappropriate is the theme of the evening." Vivian's laugh was soft. "I cook. Every year on August 14th, I cook a full meal. The dinner we were supposed to have at the beach house. I set the table for 3, and I can't eat it. Can't bear to sit there alone." She met his eyes. "Would you consider joining me tomorrow night? You and Ethan. I can't face another anniversary table by myself." Noah knew he should say no, knew this was crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But he thought about Ethan, who needed to see his father connect with other people, who needed to understand that moving forward didn't mean forgetting. And he thought about himself, sitting alone in his apartment, pretending he was fine. "What time?" he asked. Vivian's relief was palpable. 7? I'll text you the address." She pulled out her phone and Noah recited his number. "Nothing fancy, just dinner, company." "Company sounds good." Noah shifted his briefcase. "Should I bring anything?" "Just yourselves." Vivian paused. "And Noah, thank you. For tonight. For understanding." "Same to you." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Vivian, for what it's worth, you're not weak. You're just someone who loved deeply enough that it still hurts. That's not the same thing." He left before she could respond, but as the elevator doors closed, Noah caught a glimpse of Vivian's reflection in the glass. She was smiling. It was small and sad and possibly the most honest expression he'd seen on her face. The parking garage was empty when Noah reached his car. He sat in the driver's seat, not starting the engine, processing what had just happened. He danced with his CEO, shared his grief with a woman he barely knew, accepted a dinner invitation that made absolutely no professional sense. And for the first time in 18 months, the thought of going home didn't feel quite so impossible. Noah drove through the quiet city streets, past the coffee shop where Sarah used to get her morning latte, past the park where they'd taken Ethan every Sunday. The memories still hurt. But tonight, they were joined by something else. A conversation. A connection. The simple, radical act of being honest with another human being about how hard it was to keep going. The apartment was dark when he arrived. Noah paid the babysitter, checked on Ethan, asleep, clutching the stuffed elephant Sarah had given him, and finally allowed himself to sink onto the couch. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. My address is 1947 Thornhill Drive. See you and Ethan at 7. VC Noah saved the contact, staring at the screen. He should cancel, make an excuse, maintain appropriate boundaries. Instead, he typed back, "We'll be there." NM. The response came almost immediately. I'm glad. Noah set the phone down and closed his eyes. Tomorrow he'd probably regret this. Tomorrow he'd wake up and remember all the reasons this was a terrible idea. But tonight he'd danced with a stranger who understood. Tonight, the silence wasn't quite so loud. Somewhere across the city, in a corner office on the 14th floor, Vivian Cross stood at her window and looked out at the lights. For the first time in 5 years, August 14th felt like something other than an ending. It felt like a beginning, perhaps. The next day arrived with the particular weight that comes from knowing you've committed to something that terrifies you. Noah woke to Ethan bouncing on his bed at 6 a.m., full of energy and questions. Daddy, can we have pancakes? Can I wear my dinosaur shirt? Is it Saturday? When's Saturday? Noah pulled his son into a hug, breathing in the little kid smell of him, shampoo and sleep and something indefinably sweet. It's Friday, buddy, and yes to pancakes and yes to dinosaurs. Yes! Ethan pumped his small fist in the air. Daddy, are you sad today? The question caught Noah off guard. What makes you ask that? Ethan's face grew serious in the way only 4-year-olds could manage. Completely earnest, no filter. You get quiet sometimes, like you're thinking about Mommy. Noah's chest tightened. I do think about Mommy, but that doesn't mean I'm sad. Sometimes remembering makes me happy. Me too. Ethan snuggled closer. I remember how she smelled like cookies and flowers. Sarah's perfume, vanilla and lavender. Noah had finally thrown out the bottle last month because walking past it every day felt like touching a bruise. Hey, E? Noah ruffled his son's hair. How would you feel about having dinner at a friend's house tonight? Ethan sat up, eyes wide. Like a play date. Sort of. My friend doesn't have kids, but she's a really good cook. I thought it might be nice to eat somewhere different. Okay. Ethan climbed off the bed. Can I bring Mr. Elephant? Of course. As Ethan raced to the kitchen, Noah checked his phone. No messages from Vivian, which made sense. She was his CEO, not his friend, despite last night's surreal encounter. He should probably send a confirmation text, something professional and appropriate. Instead, he sent, Ethan's excited. Fair warning, he talks a lot and will definitely ask about your favorite dinosaur. The response came 5 minutes later. I'll prepare my answer. Does he have dietary restrictions? Just the usual 4-year-old preferences. No mushrooms, no onions, nothing green. Understood. See you tonight. V. Noah stared at the signature. Not V, just V. Something about that single letter felt significant, though he couldn't quite articulate why. Work was strange. Noah walked into Meridian Holdings at 8:30, rode the elevator to the finance department on the 9th floor, and settled into his cubicle exactly as he had every day for the past 3 years. Except today, he knew what the 14th floor looked like after midnight, knew that the CEO danced alone in her office, knew what Vivian Cross looked like when she cried. Mercer, you look rough. His colleague David dropped into the adjacent chair. Late night? Something like that. Well, shake it off. Morrison wants the quarterly projections by noon, and apparently we're supposed to make the numbers look better than they actually are, without technically lying. David grinned. You know, the usual. Noah spent the morning buried in spreadsheets, but his mind kept drifting. What had possessed him to accept Vivian's invitation? What would they even talk about? And what did you wear to dinner with your CEO when the entire basis of the invitation was shared grief? His phone buzzed at lunch, a text from Ethan's daycare. Ethan had a great morning. Just a reminder that we're closed Monday for the holiday. The holiday. Noah had completely forgotten, which meant he needed to figure out childcare for Monday, probably by begging his neighbor Mrs. Chen again. The constant juggling, work, parenting, the basic logistics of survival sometimes felt like its own form of grief. Sarah had been his partner in all of it. Now he was just one person trying to do the work of two. The afternoon crept past. At 5 o'clock, Noah logged off and headed to pick up Ethan from daycare. His son emerged covered in paint in triumph. "I made art!" Ethan thrust a paper at Noah, swirls of blue and green and one very enthusiastic sun. "It's the ocean." "It's beautiful, buddy. Should we hang it on the fridge?" "Yes, and then we go to your friend's house. After we go home and get cleaned up." The drive home was filled with Ethan's chatter about his day, the block tower he'd built, the song they'd learned, the injustice of having to share the red crayon. Noah listened, interjecting at the appropriate moments, while his mind raced ahead to the evening. At home, Noah managed to wrestle Ethan into clean clothes. The dinosaur shirt, as requested, paired with his least-stained jeans. He changed into a button-down and slacks, then second-guessed himself and changed into a sweater and khakis. Too casual? Too formal? He settled on the sweater, gave up on his hair, and focused on making sure Ethan's face was actually clean. "Daddy, do I look fancy?" Ethan asked, studying himself in the mirror. "You look perfect." "You look nervous." Kids. They saw everything. "Maybe a little," Noah admitted. "It's been a long time since we had dinner with new people." "What if they don't like me?" Noah knelt down, meeting his son's worried eyes. "Ethan, anyone who doesn't like you has terrible taste. You're smart and funny and kind, and if someone can't see that, it's their loss." Ethan considered this. "Okay, but I'm bringing Mr. Elephant just in case." They arrived at 1847 Thornhill Drive at precisely 7 o'clock. The house was a mid-century modern masterpiece, clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, carefully landscaped grounds that suggested either significant money or significant care. Noah suspected both. "Whoa," Ethan breathed. "Is your friend a queen?" "No, just someone who works very hard." Noah took his son's hand and approached the front door, heart hammering. This was a mistake. He should turn around, make an excuse, protect the fragile professional boundary he'd obliterated last night. The door opened before he could knock. Vivian stood in the doorway and Noah barely recognized her. Gone was the red dress and mascara-streaked face. She wore jeans, actual jeans, and a soft gray sweater, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, no armor. Just a woman who looked like she'd spent the day cooking and possibly crying. "Noah." Her voice was warm, genuine. Then her gaze dropped to Ethan. "And you must be Ethan." Ethan, usually shy around strangers, stepped forward with his hand extended, a gesture Noah had taught him months ago. "Nice to meet you. I'm 4.5. What's your favorite dinosaur?" Vivian's smile was surprised and delighted. She shook Ethan's hand solemnly. "Nice to meet you too, Ethan. My favorite is the Stegosaurus. What's yours?" "T-Rex, obviously." Ethan clutched Mr. Elephant tighter. "Do you have toys?" "I don't. I'm sorry, but I do have dessert. Would that be okay instead?" Ethan looked at Noah for permission. Noah nodded and Ethan's face split into a grin. "Deal!" Vivian stepped back, gesturing them inside. The interior matched the exterior, beautiful, carefully curated, and somehow deeply lonely. Everything was in place, from the art on the walls to the books on the shelves, but it had the feeling of a space that wasn't truly lived in. A museum, not a home. "Dinner's almost ready," Vivian said, leading them through the living room toward the kitchen. "I hope pasta is okay. I made marinara from scratch, and there's garlic bread, and—" She stopped, turning to face them with visible uncertainty. "I might have overcooked. I haven't had guests in a very long time." "It smells amazing," Noah said honestly. The scent of tomatoes and basil and baking bread filled the house, warm and inviting. Can I help with anything? No, just make yourselves comfortable. Ethan, would you like something to drink? I have juice, milk, water. Juice, please. Ethan climbed onto one of the bar stools at the kitchen island. Mr. Elephant settled beside him. Your house is really big. Do you live here all by yourself? Noah winced. Ethan, it's fine. Vivian poured juice into a cup, her movements careful. Yes, it's just me. The house is too big, really, but it came with my job and I haven't been able to leave. Because of the memories? Ethan asked with the blunt insight of a child who'd learned about loss far too young. Vivian's hand stilled on the juice carton. She met Noah's eyes over Ethan's head, and he saw the same pain he'd witnessed last night. Yes, she said softly. Because of the memories. My daddy says memories are good even when they're sad. They mean we loved someone a lot. Noah's throat tightened. He told Ethan that last month, during one of their late-night talks about Sarah. He hadn't realized his son was actually listening. Your daddy is very wise. Vivian set the juice in front of Ethan, and he's absolutely right. Dinner was surprisingly easy. Vivian had set the table for 3. Noah noticed 2 empty chairs and understood this was the beach house table she'd mentioned, the ritual she couldn't break. But with Ethan there, chattering about dinosaurs and daycare and the injustice of bedtimes, the empty spaces felt less like absences and more like possibilities. The food was excellent. Vivian hadn't been kidding about cooking from scratch. The pasta was handmade, the sauce rich and complex, the bread warm and fragrant. Ethan ate with the focused intensity of a 4-year-old presented with carbohydrates, occasionally offering commentary. This is better than Daddy's spaghetti. Ethan, what? It is. Ethan looked at Vivian seriously. Daddy tries really hard, but sometimes things are crunchy when they shouldn't be. Vivian laughed, a real genuine laugh that transformed her entire face. I'm sure your daddy's spaghetti is wonderful. It's really not, Noah admitted. Cooking was Sarah's thing. I'm still learning. Sarah was your wife? Vivian asked gently. Ethan nodded vigorously. She was the best mommy. She made really good cookies, and she sang all the time, and she smelled like flowers. He paused, his small face growing solemn. She died in an accident. Now it's just me and Daddy. The blunt statement hung in the air. Vivian's eyes were bright with unshed tears, but she didn't look away from Ethan. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. That must be very hard. Sometimes. Ethan swung his legs under the table. But Daddy says she's still with us in our hearts, and I have Mr. Elephant, and he helps. Mr. Elephant seems very important. He was Mommy's present. She gave him to me before she went away. Ethan picked up the worn stuffed animal, hugging it close. Daddy says she knew I'd need a good friend. Noah felt his composure cracking. These conversations with Ethan, the ones where his son processed grief with heartbreaking matter-of-factness, always undid him. He focused on his pasta, not trusting himself to speak. Vivian reached across the table, placing her hand over Noah's. The gesture was brief but grounding. When he looked up, she mouthed, "You're doing great." After dinner, while Vivian prepared dessert, Ethan wandered to the living room where photographs lined the mantel. Noah followed, watching his son study each frame with careful attention. Is this your family? Ethan pointed to a photo. Vivian, younger and laughing, with a man who had kind eyes and a little girl with dark curls and Vivian's smile. Vivian appeared beside them, holding a tray with chocolate cake and ice cream. Yes, that's my husband Jacob and my daughter Emma. They're pretty. Ethan looked up at her. Did they die too? Ethan, Noah started, but Vivian shook her head. It's okay. She set down the tray and knelt beside Ethan, bringing herself to his eye level. Yes, they died 5 years ago in a car accident. I miss them every single day. Me too, Ethan said solemnly. Miss my mommy, I mean, not your people. I didn't know them. I understand. Vivian smiled, though tears tracked down her face. But thank you for saying that. It helps to know other people understand missing someone. Ethan wrapped his arms around Vivian's neck in a spontaneous hug. It's It's okay to be sad. Sad is okay. Noah watched Vivian's face crumple as she held his son and felt something shift in his chest. This woman, powerful, accomplished, guarded, was letting herself be comforted by a 4-year-old who barely knew her. It was possibly the bravest thing he'd ever seen. Dessert was chocolate cake that Ethan declared the best thing ever, followed by requests to explore Vivian's bookshelf. She agreed, settling on the couch with Ethan while they looked through a book about space. Noah watched from the kitchen as they talked, Ethan asking endless questions, Vivian answering with genuine interest and patience. At 8:30, Ethan started yawning. "I'm not tired," he insisted, even as his eyes drooped. "Of course not," Noah agreed, gathering their things. "But we should probably head home anyway." "But I like it here." Ethan looked at Vivian hopefully. "Can we come back?" Vivian glanced at Noah, uncertain. "That's up to your dad." "We'll see, buddy." Noah herded Ethan toward the door, not quite ready to make promises he couldn't keep. At the threshold, Vivian caught Noah's arm. "Thank you," she whispered, "for coming, for bringing him. This was—" her voice broke. "This was the first August 14th that didn't feel like drowning." "Same," Noah said honestly. "For us too." "Would you—" Vivian stopped, then pushed forward. "Would you consider coffee sometime? Just to talk. I don't have many people I can be honest with." Noah thought about the risk, the professional implications, the possibility of getting hurt again. Then he thought about dancing in her office, about Ethan hugging her while she cried, about the first night in 18 months he hadn't felt completely alone. "I'd like that," he said. "I'd like that a lot." Vivian's smile was small but genuine. "Good, I'll text you." The drive home was quiet, Ethan dozing in his car seat. Noah's mind raced, processing the evening. He'd crossed lines he couldn't uncross, made connections that would complicate everything, and somehow, impossibly, it felt like the first right decision he'd made in months. His phone buzzed as he pulled into his apartment complex. "Thank you for tonight. You and Ethan gave me something I didn't know I needed." Noah typed back. "Same here. Good night, Vivian." "Good night, Noah." He carried Ethan inside, tucked him into bed with Mr. Elephant, and stood in the doorway of his son's room watching him sleep. The apartment was quiet, but tonight the silence felt different, softer, like maybe it was possible to be alone without being lonely. In a house across the city, Vivian Cross sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by the remains of dinner for 3. For the first time in 5 years, she didn't feel like she was honoring ghosts. She felt like she was learning to live again. Tomorrow would bring questions, complications. The messy reality of 2 broken people trying to figure out if healing was possible. But tonight was enough. Sometimes survival looked like showing up. Sometimes it looked like letting someone see you cry. And sometimes it looked like setting a table for 3 and actually having people to fill the empty chairs. Tonight was a beginning. And for the first time in a very long time, both Noah and Vivian allowed themselves to believe that beginnings were possible. The coffee invitation came 3 days later on a Tuesday morning when Noah was drowning in quarterly reports and seriously considering whether Excel spreadsheets could actually cause physical pain. His phone buzzed. "Is Friday too soon? There's a place near the office. 10 a.m.? V. Noah stared at the message, aware that David was watching him from across the cubicle divider with unconcealed curiosity. "Who's got you smiling like that?" David asked. "No one." Noah typed back quickly. "Friday works. Send me the address." The response was immediate. "Bluebird Cafe, 2 blocks west. It's quiet. Private. Private." The word carried weight. This wasn't a casual coffee between colleagues. It was 2 people who'd shown each other their worst moments, trying to figure out what came next. Friday arrived with September rain, the kind that turned the city gray and made everyone on the subway look vaguely miserable. Noah had told himself all week that this was just coffee, a conversation, nothing that needed to make his hand shake as he walked into the Bluebird Cafe at exactly 10 o'clock. Vivian was already there, tucked into a corner booth with 2 cups of coffee steaming on the table. She wore a navy blazer and white blouse, professional armor, though her hair was down and she'd skipped the severe red lipstick she usually wore to board meetings. "You're punctual," she said as Noah slid into the seat across from her. "So are you." Hazard of the job, being late feels like losing control. Vivian pushed one of the cups toward him. "Black coffee, 2 sugars. I hope that's right. I may have asked your assistant." Noah laughed despite himself. "You asked Jennifer about my coffee preferences?" "I asked her to pull the expense reports from the last team lunch, then extrapolated from there." Vivian's smile was slightly sheepish. "I'm aware that's excessive." "It's very you." Noah took a sip. "Perfect." Of course it was perfect. "Thank you." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching rain streak down the windows. The cafe was nearly empty, just an elderly couple reading newspapers and a college student with headphones, lost in a laptop screen. "I've been thinking about what you said," Vivian began, tracing the rim of her cup with one finger. "About grief being love with nowhere to go. It's the first explanation that's ever made sense to me. My therapist gets credit for that one. Took her 6 months to get me to actually hear it." "You see a therapist?" "Twice a month. More often right after Sarah died." Noah met her eyes. "It helps. Sometimes. Other times it feels like paying someone to watch me fail at getting better." Vivian's expression softened. "I tried therapy once, 3 years ago. The doctor kept saying I needed to process my feelings and work through the stages of grief, as if grief was something with a finish line." "What happened?" "I fired her after the 4th session. She told me I was avoiding healing by throwing myself into work." Vivian's laugh was bitter. She wasn't wrong, but she also didn't understand that work was the only thing keeping me functional. If I stopped long enough to feel everything, She stopped, shaking her head. "You'd drown," Noah finished quietly. "Yes." Vivian looked at him with something like relief. "Exactly that." Noah understood. He'd lived it. The constant motion, the packed schedule, the way busyness became a drug that kept the pain at bay. "After Sarah died, I took exactly 3 days off work. Everyone said I should take more time, but going back to the office meant I had a reason to get out of bed. Had somewhere to be. If I'd stayed home with Ethan, just the 2 of us in that apartment, I don't think I would have survived it. Does Ethan understand that you work so much? He's 4. He understands that Daddy has a job and sometimes can't make it to daycare pickup on time." Noah's chest tightened. "He doesn't understand that I'm terrified of being the parent he deserves. That every night I wonder if I'm screwing him up by not being enough." Vivian reached across the table, her hand covering his. The gesture was becoming familiar. "Noah, your son adores you. That was obvious within 5 minutes of meeting him. He also still asks when Mommy's coming home. I've explained death 100 ways. He still doesn't really get it. My daughter was 6 when—" Vivian's voice caught. She withdrew her hand, wrapped both around her coffee cup like it could anchor her. "Emma understood death better than I wanted her to. Her goldfish had died the year before. She'd ask questions then. Where do things go when they die? Can they come back? Why not? What did you tell her? The truth, that I didn't know, that different people believe different things, but that I thought when things we love die, they become part of the world around us." Vivian's eyes were distant. She liked that. Said it meant her goldfish was in the ocean now, swimming with all the other fish. Noah felt his throat tighten. "That's beautiful." "I thought so too. Then a year later I had to tell her that her father—" Vivian stopped, unable to finish. "I never got to tell her anything. She died believing I'd chosen work over her. That's the last thing my daughter knew about me." The pain in Vivian's voice was so raw that Noah wanted to reach for her, pull her close the way they'd held each other while dancing in her office. But they were in public now, surrounded by other people, and some gestures didn't translate outside of midnight confessions. "You can't know that's what she thought," he said instead. "No. But I know what I thought at 6 years old. I knew when my parents were too busy for me, when work mattered more than I did." Vivian's smile was sad. "I swore I'd never do that to my own child. Then I did exactly that. Vivian, I had a board meeting the morning they left. 8A. Monsieur's strategic planning for Q3. Jacob brought Emma to say goodbye before they drove out. Vivian's voice had gone flat, reciting facts like reading a grocery list. Emma asked me to come with them, said it wouldn't be fun without Mommy. I told her I'd make it up to her when I got back, promised we'd have a special day, just the two of us. Noah waited, knowing there was more. She cried. Not a lot, just quiet tears while Jacob carried her out to the car. I watched from the conference room window, saw her little face pressed against the glass, looking back at the building. Vivian's hands were shaking. That's the last time I saw my daughter alive, crying because her mother chose a meeting over her. You didn't choose that. You chose to go to work. You didn't choose what happened after. Didn't I? Vivian looked at him, and Noah saw the guilt that had been eating her alive for 5 years. I chose my career over my family every day for 6 years. I chose late nights and business trips and missing recitals. I chose to be the kind of mother my daughter had to beg for attention from. And when she needed me most, I chose a board meeting. Noah leaned forward. Vivian, listen to me. You made normal choices, the same choices millions of working parents make every day. You couldn't have known, but I should have. Her voice broke. I should have known that time was finite, that later might never come, that my daughter wouldn't always be 6 years old and wanting her mother. The elderly couple had left. The college student remained absorbed in her laptop. Noah made a decision. He stood, moved around to Vivian's side of the booth, and slid in beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. After Sarah died, he said quietly, I spent 6 months replaying the morning it happened. She wanted to drive. I said, no, take your bike. The exercise is good for you. If I just let her drive, she'd be alive. That decision, that one stupid, insignificant decision, killed my wife. Vivian turned to look at him, eyes bright with tears. My therapist finally asked me, if I could go back, knowing what I know now, would I force Sarah to take the car? Noah continued. Of course I would, but that's not the same as being responsible for what happened. The drunk driver who ran the red light, he's responsible. Not me. Not my suggestion that Sarah bike to work on a beautiful morning. It's not the same. Isn't it? You didn't cause that accident. A truck driver who fell asleep at the wheel caused it. You made normal parenting choices. You went to work. You planned to make it up to Emma later. Noah's voice was gentle but firm. The tragedy is that you didn't get a later, but that doesn't make you responsible for the tragedy itself. Vivian pressed her hands to her face. I keep thinking, if I could just go back, just that one morning, I'd tell the board to reschedule. I'd get in the car with Jacob and Emma. We'd drive to the beach house and I'd be there when... She stopped, shaking. At least they wouldn't have died thinking I didn't love them enough. They knew you loved them. How can you possibly know that? Because you're still here, torturing yourself 5 years later. Because you cook their anniversary dinner every year. Because you can't bear to change your daughter's room. Noah waited until she looked at him. That's not the behavior of someone who didn't love deeply enough. That's someone who loved so much it's still destroying her. Vivian's composure shattered. She leaned against Noah's shoulder and cried, quiet, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. He wrapped his arm around her, holding her the way he'd held Ethan through nightmares, and let her grieve. The college student glanced over once, then deliberately looked away. Some moments deserve privacy, even in public spaces. When Vivian's tears slowed, she pulled back slightly, wiping at her face with a napkin. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fall apart. Don't apologize. I cried in a Target last month because they were playing Sarah's favorite song over the speakers. That surprised a laugh out of Vivian. What song? Landslide, Fleetwood Mac. She used to sing it while cooking dinner. Noah smiled at the memory. Ethan asked why I was sad, and I told him the music made me miss Mommy. He held my hand all the way through checkout. He's an extraordinary child. He is, and he's the only reason I'm still functional. Noah paused. When Sarah died, I wanted to stop, just stop existing. But Ethan needed me. So I got up every morning and pretended I was fine, until one day it wasn't entirely pretend anymore. Vivian nodded slowly. Work did that for me. If I stopped, if I let myself feel it all, I was terrified I'd never start again. And now? Now I'm sitting in a cafe crying on my finance manager's shoulder, which suggests my coping mechanisms might need adjustment. Vivian's smile was self-deprecating. Though this feels more honest than anything I've done in 5 years. Honest is terrifying. Yes, Vivian met his eyes. But also, necessary? I think I've been so afraid of feeling the grief that I stopped feeling anything at all. Then you showed up in my office, and I couldn't maintain the armor anymore. Noah understood exactly what she meant. You want to know something strange? Since that night, since we talked, I've been sleeping better. Not great, but better than I have in months. Really? Really? I think I'd been holding so much inside that it was poisoning everything. Telling you about Sarah, about Ethan, about how hard it is. He stopped, searching for words. It was like lancing a wound. It hurt, but then I could finally breathe. Vivian was quiet for a long moment. Then, would you consider doing this again? Not just coffee, but talking, being honest. I don't have anyone else I can do this with. What about friends, family? My parents live in Arizona. We talk once a month very carefully about nothing that matters. Vivian's expression was rueful. Friends mostly disappeared after Jacob and Emma died. People don't know what to say to the grieving widow. They avoided me at first because it was awkward. Then time passed and the distance became permanent. Noah knew that pattern intimately. The friends who'd promised to check in, then slowly faded away. The couples who didn't know how to include a single father in their plans. The isolation that came with grief. How it could turn you into a stranger, even to people who'd known you for years. Sarah's friends tried, he said. They really did. But watching me with Ethan, I think it reminded them too much of what they'd lost. Eventually, the invitations stopped coming. Do you resent them? Sometimes. Mostly, I understand. Grief makes people uncomfortable. We're proof that terrible things can happen to anyone, at any time. That's not a comfortable reminder. Vivian nodded. After the accident, my assistant started leaving sympathy cards on my desk. Different people, every day. CEOs I'd never met, investors who'd heard the news, employees expressing condolences. She stared into her coffee. I kept every single one. Haven't read them. They're in a box in my closet, still sealed. I can't. You don't have to, Noah said quietly. There's no right way to do this. Isn't there? Everyone kept telling me I needed to process, to heal, to move forward, as if grief was a project with deliverables and timelines. Sounds like my company's approach to everything. Turn it into a problem that can be solved with the right strategy. Vivian laughed, surprised. That's exactly it. Meridian's entire philosophy: identify the problem, develop a solution, execute efficiently. But grief doesn't work like that. No, Noah agreed. It really doesn't. They sat in silence for a while, shoulders touching, watching rain continue to fall outside. The cafe had grown quieter. Even the college student had packed up and left, leaving Noah and Vivian alone except for the barista wiping down tables in the back. I should get back to the office, Vivian said finally, though she didn't move. I have a meeting at 11. Strategic planning? Acquisition review. We're considering purchasing a tech startup, and the board wants my recommendation. She sighed. 6 months ago, I would have been excited. Now it just feels empty, like I'm going through motions that don't matter anymore. Noah turned to face her. Do you want to keep doing this? The CEO thing, the board meetings, all of it? Vivian looked startled by the question. I don't know. It's who I am, who I've been for 15 years. That's not an answer. No. Vivian's smile was sad. No, it's not. The truth is, I don't know what I want anymore. I built this career thinking it would give me purpose. Then I lost the only things that actually mattered, and the career just kept going, like none of it had happened. Would you leave? If you could? And do what? I'm 43 years old, CEO of a Fortune 500 company. My entire identity is wrapped up in this job. She paused. Though sometimes I fantasize about walking away, selling everything, moving somewhere quiet where no one knows who I am or what I've lost. What stops you? Fear, probably. and the knowledge that geography won't fix what's broken. Vivian looked at him. You can't outrun grief. Trust me. I've tried. Noah understood that too. The fantasy of starting over somewhere new, where the memories couldn't follow. Except memories weren't tied to places. They lived inside you, portable and inescapable. After Sarah died, he said, I almost moved. Thought maybe a new apartment, a new neighborhood. Ethan and I could have a fresh start. Then I realized I wasn't trying to escape the apartment. I was trying to escape myself. The version of me that had failed to save my wife. Did you move? No, stayed in the same place, same job, same life. Because changing the scenery wouldn't change the fact that Sarah was gone. Noah's smile was wry. Though I did rearrange all the furniture, small rebellions. Vivian laughed, genuine and surprised. I haven't changed anything. The house looks exactly like it did 5 years ago. Jacob's clothes are still in the closet. Emma's room is untouched. It's like I've been living in a museum of my own life. Is that what you want? The question hung between them. Vivian's expression shifted, something flickering across her face that looked like possibility, or maybe just permission to consider alternatives. No, she said slowly. No, I don't think it is, but I don't know how to change it. Every time I think about packing up their things, about admitting they're really gone, her voice broke. It feels like killing them all over again. Noah took her hand. It's not. It's just acknowledging that they existed in the past, that you're still here in the present. How did you do it? Move forward? I'm not sure I have, Noah admitted. I'm just moving. Some days forward, some days sideways, some days in circles, but I'm trying to show Ethan that life continues, that we can honor Sarah's memory while still living our own lives. That's very wise. That's very therapy, Noah smiled. 6 months of paying someone to tell me the same things until I finally heard them. Vivian checked her watch, grimaced. I really do have to go. But Noah, would you consider having dinner again? Just us this time. I'd like to continue this conversation. Without Ethan as a buffer? Without Ethan as a buffer, Vivian confirmed. Though I adore your son, this just feels different, adult, something I need to navigate on my own terms. Noah's heart kicked up. This was crossing another line, from shared grief to something more deliberate, something that looked suspiciously like building a relationship. When? He asked. Tomorrow? I could cook again, or we could go out if you'd prefer. Your cooking was incredible. I'd be happy to impose on you again. It's not an imposition. It's... Vivian paused, searching for words. It's nice. Cooking for someone who actually appreciates it, who eats like they're grateful rather than obligated. 7 o'clock? Perfect. Vivian stood and Noah followed suit. They walked to the cafe door together, hesitating on the threshold. Thank you, Vivian said. For this. For listening. For not treating me like I'm fragile or broken. You are broken, Noah said gently. So am I. That's kind of the point. We don't have to pretend otherwise. Vivian's smile was slow and genuine. No, I suppose we don't. She left first, disappearing into the rain with her umbrella and her professional armor back in place. Noah watched her go, then pulled out his phone to text Mrs. Chen about babysitting tomorrow night. The response came quickly. Of course, Ethan is always welcome. You have plans? Noah hesitated, then typed. Dinner with a friend. A friend? Mrs. Chen's next message included approximately 17 emoji. Is this friend a lady friend? You should have lady friends. Sarah would want you to have lady friends. Noah laughed despite himself. Mrs. Chen had been trying to set him up with her niece for 6 months. It's complicated. I'll explain later. He walked back to the office through the rain, mind churning. He was having dinner with his CEO. Again. Except this time without his son as chaperone, and with the clear understanding that something was developing between them. Something that had nothing to do with professional boundaries and everything to do with two broken people finding unexpected comfort in shared honesty. It should terrify him. It did terrify him. But it also felt like the first real choice he'd made in 18 months that wasn't about survival or obligation. This was about wanting something, about reaching toward possibility instead of just enduring. The afternoon passed in a blur of meetings and spreadsheets. Noah kept catching himself checking his phone, half expecting Vivian to cancel. To come to her senses and remember that finance managers and CEOs didn't have dinner together, especially not when the basis of their connection was dancing in dark offices and crying in public cafes. But no cancellation came. Instead, at 5:30, a text arrived. "I'm making coq au vin. Is there anything you don't eat?" Noah typed back, "I eat everything. Can I bring wine? Already taken care of. Just bring yourself. See you tomorrow." N. I'm looking forward to it. V. Noah stared at that last message, heart doing something complicated in his chest. Looking forward to it. Such a simple phrase, but it implied future. Hope. The possibility that tomorrow might bring something good instead of just more of the same grief-tinged survival. That night, after putting Ethan to bed, Noah sat in the living room and looked at the framed photo on the mantel. His wedding day, Sarah radiant in white, both of them impossibly young and convinced they had forever. He'd avoided looking at it directly for months. It hurt too much. But tonight, he picked up the frame and really studied it. Sarah's smile, the joy in her eyes, the way she'd looked at him like he was everything she'd ever wanted. "I'm having dinner with someone tomorrow," he said to the photograph. "Her name is Vivian. She lost her husband and daughter. She's grieving like me. We understand each other." The photo didn't respond. Of course it didn't. But Noah continued anyway. "I don't know what this is. Maybe just two sad people trying not to feel so alone. Maybe something more. But I think you'd want me to try. You made me promise not to stop living." His voice cracked. "I'm trying to keep that promise." He set the frame back carefully, then pulled out his phone and scrolled to the last video he had of Sarah. Dated 2 weeks before the accident, just Sarah in the kitchen, dancing while she cooked, singing off-key to some pop song. Ethan had been at preschool. Noah had been working from home. He'd grabbed his phone on impulse, capturing 30 seconds of pure, ordinary joy. He hadn't been able to watch it since the funeral. But tonight, he pressed play. Sarah twirled, wooden spoon in hand, completely unself-conscious. She noticed the camera and laughed. "Are you recording me being ridiculous?" "Always," Noah's voice said from behind the phone. "Someone needs to document this for posterity." "Posterity can judge me all they want. I'm making your favorite." Sarah blew a kiss at the camera. "Love you, you creep." "Love you too." The video ended. Noah played it again, then again. Each time hurt, but each time also reminded him of something important. Sarah had been real. Their love had been real. And she'd been happy right up until the end. That mattered. That had to matter. He fell asleep on the couch, phone still in hand, and dreamed of dancing. Not the desperate, grief-stricken dancing in Vivian's office, but the easy, joyful kind. The kind that meant being alive was still worth it. Tomorrow would bring complications, questions. The reality of trying to build something new while still carrying the weight of what he'd lost. But tonight, Noah let himself feel something other than pain. He felt possibility. And that somehow felt like the beginning of healing. Saturday evening arrived with clear skies, and Noah's nerves strung so tight he changed shirts 3 times before Mrs. Chen knocked on his door at 6:30. "You look very handsome," she announced, sweeping into the apartment with the confidence of someone who'd appointed herself his surrogate mother. "Nice shirt. Good cologne. This is definitely a date." "It's dinner with a friend." "Mm-hmm." Mrs. Chen's knowing smile said she didn't believe him for a second. "And I'm the Queen of England. Where's my little prince?" Ethan came running, already in his pajamas. "Mrs. Chen, can we make popcorn and watch the dinosaur movie?" "Of course, and your daddy is going to have a wonderful evening with his friend." She made air quotes that made Noah want to sink through the floor. "You take your time, stay out late, live a little." Noah escaped before she could offer more commentary on his social life. The drive to Thornhill Drive felt both too long and too short, his mind oscillating between anticipation and panic. This was different from the first dinner. That had been about grief, about 2 broken people finding unexpected understanding. This felt intentional, like they were choosing each other, not just choosing not to be alone. Vivian answered the door in dark jeans and a burgundy sweater, hair loose around her shoulders, and Noah's breath caught. She looked softer than he'd ever seen her. Younger, almost shy. "Hi," she said, and he heard the nervousness in her voice. "Hi." Noah held up the wine bottle he'd brought despite her protests. "I know you said you had it covered, but it felt wrong to show up empty-handed." "Old habits?" Vivian stepped back to let him in. The house smelled incredible, rich and savory, garlic and herbs. Something like that. Sarah always said arriving at someone's home without a gift was a cardinal sin. Noah paused, registering what he'd just said. "Sorry, I didn't mean to—" "Don't." Vivian took the wine, her fingers brushing his. "Don't apologize for mentioning her. She was part of your life. She still is, in a way." Noah followed her to the kitchen, where pots simmered on the stove and a dining table had been set for two. Just two. No empty chairs tonight. Something about that felt significant. "Can I help with anything?" he asked. "Keep me company, pour the wine, tell me about your day." Vivian stirred something in a copper pot, her movements practiced and graceful. "I've been cooking since noon, partially because coq au vin takes forever, partially because it gave me something to do besides overthink this evening." Noah opened the wine, poured 2 glasses. "What were you overthinking?" "Everything. Whether this was appropriate, whether I was ready, whether you'd show up or come to your senses and cancel." Vivian accepted the glass he offered, their fingers touching again. "Whether I'd completely misread whatever this is between us." "You didn't misread it." Noah took a sip of wine, gathering courage. "I'm terrified, if that helps. Haven't been on anything resembling a date since—" He stopped. "Since Sarah," Vivian finished gently. "And this is my first dinner with a man who isn't a business associate or family member since Jacob died. So we're both terrified. Does that make it easier or harder?" "I have no idea." Vivian's laugh was soft. "But at least we're terrified together." They moved around the kitchen in comfortable silence, Vivian finishing dinner while Noah set out plates and silverware. The domesticity of it felt strange and right all at once, like trying on someone else's life and finding it fit better than expected. Dinner was extraordinary. The coq au vin was rich and complex, chicken falling off the bone, sauce deep, and wine dark. Vivian had also made roasted vegetables and crusty bread, and Noah found himself eating with genuine appetite for the first time in recent memory. "This is incredible," he said. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" "My grandmother. She was French, very traditional, believed that cooking was an art form, and anyone who didn't take it seriously was wasting their time." Vivian smiled at the memory. She'd spend entire weekends teaching me techniques, proper knife skills, mother sauces, the importance of patience. She'd be proud. "I think so. She died when I was in college, but she left me all her cookbooks, handwritten recipes in the margins, notes about adjusting for altitude or season." Vivian's expression turned wistful. "I used to cook these elaborate meals for Jacob and Emma. Then after they died, I stopped completely. Couldn't bear to make food for just myself." "What changed?" "You, actually. That first dinner, cooking for you and Ethan, reminded me that food is meant to be shared, that there's joy in feeding people you care about." She met his eyes. "So thank you for that." Noah felt warmth spread through his chest. "Ethan hasn't stopped talking about your chocolate cake. I think you've set an impossibly high bar for all future desserts." "Speaking of Ethan, how is he? Adjusting okay to your late nights at the office?" "He's good. Resilient in the way only kids can be." Noah took a sip of wine. "Though he asked me yesterday if you were my girlfriend." Vivian's eyes widened. "What did you tell him?" "That you were my friend. Which is true, technically." Noah hesitated. "But also incomplete. I'm not sure what we are exactly." "Neither am I." Vivian set down her fork. "But I know that I think about you constantly, that I look forward to your texts, that sitting here with you feels more right than anything has in 5 years." Noah's heart hammered. "Same. All of that. Which terrifies me because I don't know if I'm ready. If this is too soon, if I'm dishonoring Sarah's memory by—" He stopped, struggling for words. "By moving forward," Vivian asked softly. "By wanting to." They sat with that admission between them. Outside, the evening deepened toward night, streetlights flickering on one by one. Inside, the silence felt heavy with possibility and fear in equal measure. After Jacob and Emma died, Vivian said slowly, I made myself a promise. I would never care about anyone that deeply again. Because losing them nearly destroyed me, and I couldn't survive that kind of loss twice. That's a lonely way to live. It is, but it felt safer, controllable. Vivian's smile was sad. Then you showed up in my office at midnight, and suddenly I was telling a virtual stranger things I'd never told anyone. And I realized I'd been so focused on protecting myself that I'd stopped actually living. Noah understood exactly what she meant. He'd been doing the same thing, going through motions, checking boxes, surviving but not thriving, telling himself it was enough to be present for Ethan, to show up at work, to make it through each day without completely falling apart. Sarah made me promise something, he said, the week before she died. We'd had this stupid fight about something that doesn't even matter now. She said life was too short to waste on being angry or scared, made me swear that if anything ever happened to her, I wouldn't stop living, wouldn't let grief turn me into a ghost. That's a hard promise to keep. Impossible some days. Noah's voice was rough. Because being alive means risking more pain, means opening yourself up to loss. And I didn't know if I was strong enough to do that again. And now? Noah looked at Vivian, really looked at her. The vulnerability in her eyes, the hope she was trying so hard to hide, the courage it took to invite him here and admit she felt something too. He thought about the past few weeks, the way talking to her had made the grief feel less suffocating, how she understood without him having to explain. The possibility that maybe healing didn't mean forgetting, just learning to carry the weight differently. Now I think maybe I am, he said quietly. Strong enough, I mean. With help. Vivian reached across the table, taking his hand. I'm scared, Noah. Really scared. Of caring too much. Of losing someone again. Of letting myself hope for something that might disappear. Me too. But I also think... She paused, gathering courage. I think that being scared and doing it anyway might be the only way forward. That if we wait until we're not scared, we'll be waiting forever. Noah squeezed her hand. So what do we do? I don't know. Take it slow, be honest about what we're feeling, accept that this is messy and complicated and probably going to hurt sometimes. Vivian's laugh was shaky. I'm better at 5-year strategic plans than I am at navigating whatever this is. Same. My entire career is built on analyzing data and making calculated decisions. This doesn't feel calculated. It feels like jumping off a cliff and hoping someone catches you. Not very reassuring imagery. No, Noah agreed, but accurate. They finished dinner talking about safer topics, Ethan's obsession with dinosaurs, Vivian's upcoming board meeting, the new Italian restaurant that had opened downtown. But underneath the casual conversation ran a current of something deeper. Awareness. Possibility. The sense that they were both standing at a threshold, deciding whether to step through. After dinner, Vivian brought out dessert. A perfect tarte tatin, apples caramelized and gleaming. Noah took one bite and actually groaned. You're trying to ruin me for all other food, aren't you? Is it working? Completely. Noah took another bite. Ethan's going to stage a rebellion when he finds out there was dessert and he wasn't here. I'll make him his own next time. Assuming there is a next time. Vivian's voice was carefully neutral, but Noah heard the question underneath. There will be, he said, if you want there to be. I do. Very much. They moved to the living room after dessert, Vivian bringing coffee, while Noah gravitated toward the photographs on the mantel. The same ones Ethan had studied that first night. Vivian's family, frozen in time. This was Emma's 6th birthday, Vivian said, joining him. She pointed to a photo of a little girl with dark curls, covered in frosting, laughing at something off camera. She wanted a princess party, insisted on wearing her costume for a week straight afterward. She looks like you. She had Jacob's sense of humor, though, quick wit, terrible puns. She'd make these elaborate jokes that didn't quite land, but she'd laugh anyway, so pleased with herself. Vivian's smile was bittersweet. I miss that, the sound of her laughing. Noah picked up another frame, Vivian and Jacob on what looked like a hiking trail, both windblown and happy. Tell me about him, if you want to. Vivian was quiet for a moment. Jacob was... he was steady, grounded. I was all ambition and drive, constantly chasing the next goal. He reminded me to slow down, to notice the world around me. She traced the edge of the frame. We met at a mutual friend's wedding. I was there alone, stressed about work, checking my phone every 5 minutes. He asked me to dance, and I said I couldn't. I had calls to make. He said the calls could wait 5 minutes. Could they? No. But I danced anyway, and for those 3 minutes, I wasn't CEO Vivian Cross. I was just Vivian, dancing with a kind stranger who made me laugh. Her voice was soft with memory. We were married 6 months later. Emma came 2 years after that. Do you regret it, getting married so quickly? Never. He was the best decision I ever made. The only decision I never second-guessed. Vivian set the photo down carefully. I just regret not appreciating it more while I had it. I was always thinking about the next thing, the next deal, the next promotion, the next milestone. I forgot to be present for what I already had. Noah understood that more than he wanted to admit. How many dinners with Sarah had he spent half-focused, mentally composing emails or reviewing reports? How many times had Ethan asked him to play and he'd said, "In a minute," and then forgotten completely? Sarah used to call me on it, he said. She'd say, "Noah, you're here, but you're not here." She was right. I was physically present, but mentally absent, always planning or worrying or thinking 3 steps ahead. Did it bother her? Sometimes. We fought about it occasionally. She wanted me to be more spontaneous, more in the moment. Noah's smile was rueful. She'd suggest random weekend trips and I'd pull out my calendar, start talking about deadlines and responsibilities. She'd get frustrated, say that life was happening now, not in some future when everything was perfectly organized. She sounds wise. She was. I just didn't always listen. Noah turned to face Vivian. That's what haunts me most. Not that she died, though that's terrible enough, but that I wasted so much time we had together being distracted, being less than fully present. Vivian nodded slowly. Marcus, Jacob's business partner, he said something similar to me after the funeral. Said I'd been given a gift and I'd squandered it. That Jacob and Emma deserved better than a wife and mother who was always half gone. That's cruel. It was also true. Vivian's voice was flat. I can't even argue with him. I was a terrible mother. I missed recitals and parent-teacher conferences. I forgot Emma's show and tell 3 times. I promised her we'd have special time together and then kept breaking those promises because work came up. Vivian, no, let me finish. I need to say this. She took a shaky breath. Emma's teacher called me once, said Emma had told the class that her mommy lived at the office. Not worked at the office, lived there. Like I was some kind of fairy tale creature who existed only in a distant castle. Tears tracked down Vivian's face. My 6-year-old daughter thought I lived somewhere else because I was home so rarely. Noah pulled Vivian close, holding her while she cried. Kids say things. They don't always mean, but she was right. I did live at the office, more than I lived with my own family. Vivian's voice was muffled against his shoulder. And I told myself it was temporary. That once I made CEO, once the company stabilized, once we secured the merger, then I'd have time. But there was always another goal, another excuse. We're all guilty of that, thinking we have more time than we do. But you're getting another chance. You have Ethan. You can do better. Be better. Vivian pulled back, wiping at her eyes. I don't get that. I don't get to go back and make different choices. I just have to live with the ones I made. Noah cupped her face in his hands, making her meet his eyes. Then don't waste time on what you can't change. Honor them by doing better now, by being present for the people who are still here. Is that what you're doing with Ethan? Trying to. Some days I succeed. Some days I'm still that distracted dad who's thinking about work during story time. Noah's smile was sad. But I'm trying. That's all we can do. Vivian leaned into his touch, closing her eyes. They stood like that for a long moment, foreheads nearly touching, breathing the same air, holding each other up. When Vivian opened her eyes again, something had shifted in her expression. Less pain, more determination. "I want to show you something," she said, "but I need you to promise you won't judge." "I promise." Vivian took his hand and led him upstairs. The second floor was darker, most doors closed. She stopped in front of one at the end of the hall, her hand on the knob. Noah could feel her trembling. "I haven't let anyone in here since the accident," she said quietly. "Not even the cleaning service. This is Emma's room." She opened the door. The room was a time capsule, pink walls covered with drawings and posters, a small bed with a princess comforter, bookshelves crammed with picture books and stuffed animals, a child's desk with crayons scattered across the surface, as if Emma had just stepped away and would return any moment. Dust motes floated in the dim light. Everything was exactly as it had been 5 years ago, preserved like a shrine. "I come in here sometimes," Vivian whispered, "sit on her bed, read her favorite books, pretend she's just at school, that she'll come home any minute asking for a snack." She picked up a stuffed rabbit from the bed, holding it carefully. This was Mr. Hoppy. Emma took him everywhere. He was supposed to come on the trip to the beach house, but she forgot him. I remember her being so upset when Jacob called from the road. Noah's throat was tight. "What did you do?" "Promised I'd bring Mr. Hoppy when I came to join them for the weekend. Told her not to worry, that Mommy would fix it." Vivian's laugh was bitter. Another promise I never kept. Noah looked around the room at all the small markers of a life cut short. Art projects on the walls, a half-finished puzzle on the floor, tiny shoes lined up in the closet. The overwhelming absence of the child who should have grown up here. "You know what's worst?" Vivian sat on the bed, still clutching the rabbit. "Emma would be 11 now, almost 12. She'd be in middle school, probably rolling her eyes at me, testing boundaries. I'll never know what kind of person she would have become, what she'd have loved, who she'd have been." Noah sat beside her, careful not to disturb anything. "Tell me about her, what she was like." "Fierce. Even at 6, she was so fierce. She'd march up to kids twice her size and tell them they were being unfair. She couldn't stand injustice, any kind of injustice." Vivian's smile was watery. Once she brought home a boy from school because he didn't have lunch money, just showed up at our door with this kid in tow, announced he was staying for dinner, dared me to argue. "Did you?" "Are you kidding? She'd have staged a rebellion. So we fed him, and it turned out his family was going through a hard time financially. We ended up helping them connect with resources, and Emma was so proud, like she'd single-handedly solved poverty." Vivian's expression was fond. "That was Emma. She saw problems and fixed them, didn't wait for someone else to step up. She sounds remarkable." She was. And she deserved more than I gave her. Vivian set Mr. Hoppy back carefully on the bed. "I've kept this room exactly as it was because changing it feels like admitting she's really gone, like I'm erasing her." "You're not erasing her, you're just acknowledging that she's not coming back." Noah chose his words carefully. "Keeping a shrine doesn't bring her back. It just keeps you stuck in the past." "I know that. Logically, I know. But every time I think about boxing up her things, about repainting these walls..." Vivian's voice broke. "It feels like a betrayal, like I'm choosing to move on when she can't." Noah understood. He'd had similar thoughts about Sarah's belongings, about changing anything in their apartment. The guilt of continuing to live when she couldn't. "After Sarah died," he said slowly, "I kept all her clothes. Her side of the closet exactly as she'd left it. Told myself I was preserving her memory. But really, I was punishing myself. Every time I opened that closet, every morning while getting dressed, I had to face the physical proof that she was gone." "What changed?" "Ethan. He was 3, barely understood what had happened. One day I found him in our bedroom, wrapped in Sarah's favorite sweater. It was huge on him, dragging on the floor. He said it smelled like Mommy." Noah's voice was rough. "And I realized I was hoarding her things instead of sharing them, instead of letting Ethan have pieces of her to hold on to." Vivian was listening intently. "So I went through everything, kept some pieces, her wedding dress, photos, her jewelry for Ethan when he's older. But I donated most of it, kept one sweater that still smelled like her perfume, put it somewhere Ethan could reach. Noah paused. It was the hardest thing I'd done since her funeral, but afterward I could breathe a little easier. The apartment felt less like a mausoleum. Did it feel like you were betraying her? At first, every single item felt like I was choosing to let her go. Noah took Vivian's hand, but then I realized she was already gone. Nothing I kept or threw away would change that. The only question was whether I wanted to live surrounded by monuments to my grief, or whether I wanted to honor her memory while still building a life for Ethan. Vivian was crying again, silent tears streaming down her face. Don't know if I can do it. Let go. You don't have to do it alone. Or all at once. Noah squeezed her hand. But maybe you could start small. One drawer, one shelf. See how it feels. What if it feels terrible? Then you stop. Try again another day. Or never. There's no timeline for this. Noah looked around the room. But I think Emma wouldn't want you living in a museum. She'd want you to remember her, but she'd also want you to be happy. How can you possibly know that? Because she was 6. And 6-year-olds love their mothers absolutely, without reservation. They want their mothers to be happy more than anything else in the world. Noah's smile was gentle. Ethan tells me all the time that Mommy wants me to smile more. He's 4. He doesn't have complex thoughts about grief or moving on. He just knows his mother loved him, and love wants happiness. Vivian stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she stood. She walked to Emma's bookshelf and pulled out a worn copy of Goodnight Moon. This was her favorite. We read it every single night, sometimes 3 times in a row. She had it memorized. Vivian opened the book, and Noah saw crayon marks on some pages. She'd add her own commentary. The bunny wasn't just saying goodnight to the moon, he was saying goodnight to dinosaurs and ice cream and everything else she could think of. That's beautiful. Vivian's voice was shaking but determined. I'd like to give this to Ethan. If that's okay. I think Emma would have liked him. They both have that same fierce certainty about the world. Noah felt his eyes prick with tears. He'd treasure it, I promise. Vivian carefully placed the book in his hands. Then she looked around the room, her expression changing from grief-stricken to contemplative. Will you help me? She asked. Not tonight, but someday soon. Help me go through her things. Decide what to keep, what to donate, what to share with children who need them. She met his eyes. I can't do it alone, but I think with you here, I might be able to start. Noah stood, still holding the book. Of course, whenever you're ready. Thank you. Vivian took one last look around the room, then turned and walked out. Noah followed, pulling the door closed behind them. Downstairs, they settled on the couch with fresh coffee. Vivian curled into Noah's side, his arm around her shoulders, and they sat in comfortable silence while the house settled around them. I called Marcus yesterday, Vivian said eventually. Jacob's business partner. He calls every year on the anniversary to, I don't know, remind me of what I lost, I guess. Tell me I'm dishonoring their memory by continuing to run the company. Noah felt his jaw tighten. What did you say? I told him to stop calling, that I appreciated his grief, but I didn't need him policing mine. Vivian's voice was quiet but firm. Then I hung up on him. First time in 5 years I've actually stood up to him. Good. He called back 3 times, left messages saying I was being cruel, that I owed it to Jacob to listen. Vivian looked up at Noah. But I don't owe him my grief. I don't owe him access to my pain. No, Noah agreed. You don't. Vivian paused. I think I've been letting other people define how I'm supposed to grieve. Marcus telling me I'm not sad enough. The board telling me I need to be stronger. The media wanting me to be some kind of tragic widow who bravely soldiers on. She laughed softly. But none of them know what this feels like. None of them get to tell me how to survive it. Noah pressed a kiss to the top of her head, the gesture feeling natural and right. You're allowed to grieve however you need to, fast or slow, messy or controlled. There's no right way. That's what I'm learning, with your help. Vivian tilted her head to look at him. These past few weeks, talking to you, being honest about how hard this is, it's helped more than 5 years of trying to handle it alone. Same. You've helped me too. Noah meant it completely. The nights were still hard, but they were getting easier. The grief was still there, but it had space to breathe instead of choking him. They talked for hours, conversation flowing easily between memories and hopes, past and present. Vivian told him about her childhood in Boston, her grandmother's cooking lessons, her decision to pursue business despite her parents' concerns. Noah shared stories about Sarah, how they'd met in a college study group, her terrible sense of direction, the way she'd sung off-key in the shower every morning. It was past midnight when Noah finally checked his phone and saw a text from Mrs. Chen. Ethan asleep by 9. No rush coming home. Enjoy your friend. He showed Vivian the message and they both laughed. She's shameless, Noah said. She's wonderful. Ethan is lucky to have her looking out for him. Vivian hesitated. And you're lucky to have someone pushing you to have a life beyond work and parenting. Is that what this is? A life? I think so, or at least the beginning of one. Vivian stood, pulling Noah to his feet. It's late. You should probably head home before Mrs. Chen sends a search party. At the door, Noah turned to face her. They stood close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes, could feel her breath on his face. Thank you, he said, for tonight, for trusting me with Emma's room, for the book. Thank you for listening, for not running away when I showed you all my broken pieces. Vivian's smile was soft. Most people can't handle other people's grief. It's too uncomfortable. Well, I'm uncomfortably familiar with it myself, so. Noah's attempt at humor fell flat, but Vivian laughed anyway. Then, before he could overthink it, Noah leaned in and kissed her. Gentle, careful, asking a question rather than demanding an answer. Vivian froze for half a heartbeat, then kissed him back, tentative and sweet and tasting of coffee and possibility. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Was that okay? Noah asked. Yes. Vivian's voice was steady. Very okay. Terrifying, but okay. Terrifying is kind of our theme. It is. Vivian touched her fingers to her lips, as if confirming the kiss had actually happened. Will I see you again soon? Definitely, if you want to. I do, very much. She paused. Noah, I know this is complicated, with work, with our histories, with everything, but I want to try, really try. Me too. Noah squeezed her hand. We'll figure it out, together. He drove home through empty streets, mind replaying the kiss, the conversations, the way Vivian had trusted him with her most painful memories. When he arrived at his apartment, Mrs. Chen was dozing on the couch. She woke as he entered, giving him a knowing look. Good date? Good dinner, Noah corrected, but he couldn't stop smiling. Well, your son was an angel, and you look happy. Haven't seen you look this happy in a long time. Mrs. Chen gathered her things. I like seeing you happy, Noah. Sarah would like it too. After she left, Noah checked on Ethan. Fast asleep, Mr. Elephant clutched tight. He set Goodnight Moon on the nightstand, ready for tomorrow's bedtime story. Then he pulled out his phone and sent a text. Made it home safely. Thank you for everything tonight. Sweet dreams. N. The response came almost immediately. Sweet dreams to you too. I'm glad you came. V. Noah fell asleep still smiling, for the first time in 18 months feeling like maybe, just maybe, the future held something worth reaching for. The next 3 weeks unfolded with a cautious joy Noah had almost forgotten was possible. Coffee dates became regular occurrences, Tuesday and Thursday mornings at the Bluebird Cafe, tucked into their corner booth where the world felt smaller and safer. Weekend dinners at Vivian's house, sometimes with Ethan, sometimes just the two of them. Long phone calls after Ethan went to bed. Conversations that stretched past midnight about everything and nothing. They were careful. Maybe too careful. At work, they maintained perfect professional distance. Vivian, the CEO, Noah, the finance manager who occasionally submitted reports to the executive team. No one suspected anything, which was exactly how they both wanted it. The relationship was too fragile, too new, too weighted with grief to expose to scrutiny. But the careful distance was becoming harder to maintain. Noah noticed it first during a company-wide meeting when Vivian presented quarterly results. She was brilliant as always, confident, articulate, commanding the room with ease. But halfway through her presentation, her eyes found his across the crowded conference room. Just for a second. Just long enough for Noah to see the smile she was hiding. David elbowed him. "You okay? You're staring." Noah forced his attention back to the slides. "Just processing the numbers." "Sure you are." David's knowing grin suggested he suspected something, though probably not the whole truth. After the meeting, Noah's phone buzzed. "Maintain your poker face better. David was watching you watch me." V. Noah typed back, "Noted. Though in my defense, you were very compelling up there. Flattery will get you everywhere." "Coffee tomorrow?" "Always." That night, Noah was reading Goodnight Moon to Ethan for the dozenth time. The book had become a bedtime staple since Vivian had given it to them, when his son interrupted the familiar rhythm. "Daddy, is Vivian your girlfriend?" Noah nearly dropped the book. "What makes you ask that? You smile when you talk about her, and you see her a lot." Ethan's logic was 4-year-old simple and devastating in its accuracy. "Mrs. Chen says you have a lady friend and you're being very mysterious. Note to self, have a conversation with Mrs. Chen about discretion. Vivian is my friend. A good friend. But do you like her? Like how Prince Eric likes Ariel?" Noah was not prepared for this conversation. "It's complicated, buddy. Grown-up relationships are different from Disney movies." "Because of mommy." And there it was, the question Noah had been dreading. He set the book aside and pulled Ethan into his lap. "What do you know about Mommy and Vivian?" "Mommy was your wife and she died. Vivian's family died too. You're both sad sometimes, but you make each other less sad." Ethan's summary was painfully accurate. "Is that bad?" "No, E. That's not bad at all." Noah kissed the top of his son's head. "Mommy loved us very much. She'd want us to be happy, and Vivian makes me happy. Is that okay with you?" Ethan considered this with the gravity of a much older child. "Does Vivian make you happy like Mommy did?" "Different happy. Mommy will always be special. No one could ever replace her." Noah chose his words carefully. "But people can have more than one person they care about, like how you love both Mr. Elephant and your dinosaur collection." "That's not the same, Daddy." "You're right. It's not." Noah sighed. "The truth is, I'm still figuring this out, but I promise, whatever happens with Vivian, you come first, always." Ethan snuggled closer. "I like Vivian. She's nice and she makes good cake. If you want her to be your girlfriend, that's okay." Noah felt his throat tighten. "Thank you, buddy. That means a lot." "Can we finish the story now? We didn't say goodnight to the mittens yet." They finished the book, Ethan adding his usual commentary about all the extra things the bunnies should say goodnight to. After tucking him in, Noah stood in the doorway watching his son drift off to sleep, marveling at the resilience of children. Ethan had lost his mother, had his entire world upended, and still managed to move forward with hope and openness. His phone buzzed. "How was bedtime?" "V." Noah stepped into the living room before responding. "Eventful." Ethan asked if you're my girlfriend. Gave his blessing if you are. The phone rang immediately. Noah answered to hear Vivian's slightly panicked voice. "Oh no, what did you tell him?" "The truth. That we're figuring this out. That his mother will always be special. That he comes first." Noah settled onto the couch. He seemed satisfied with that answer. "And are we figuring this out?" "I think so. Though I'm not entirely sure what this is yet." Vivian was quiet for a moment. "I've been thinking about that. What we are. What we're doing." Noah's stomach tightened with sudden anxiety. And I think I want more than careful coffee dates and secret dinners. I want..." She stopped, then pushed forward. "I want to actually try this. Not just two grieving people finding comfort, but something real. Something intentional." "Vivian, I know it's complicated. I know there are 100 reasons this could be a terrible idea. Work complications, our histories, the fact that we're both still grieving." Her voice was steady despite the nervousness underneath. "But I also know that I think about you constantly. that I'm happier than I've been in 5 years, that when I imagine my future now, you're in it. Noah felt something crack open in his chest, hope and terror in equal measure. I want that too, so much, but I'm scared. Of what? Of losing you, of failing, of dishonoring Sarah's memory, of screwing up Ethan in the process. The words tumbled out. Of falling in love with you and then having something terrible happen because that's what happens to people I love. Noah. Vivian's voice was gentle. I'm scared too, terrified actually, but I think being scared together is better than being safe and alone. When did you get so wise? I've had a good teacher. You've shown me that grief doesn't have to mean giving up on living. Vivian paused. So what do you say? Should we stop being careful and actually take a real chance on this? Noah thought about Sarah's promise. Don't stop living. Thought about Ethan's simple acceptance. Thought about the way his apartment felt less empty since Vivian had entered his life. Yes, he said, let's take the chance. He could hear Vivian's smile through the phone. Okay then, so officially, will you be my boyfriend? I feel ridiculous asking at 43, but yes. Noah laughed, despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. Though we probably need to figure out the work situation. I'm pretty sure there are policies about CEOs dating employees. I'll talk to HR. We'll disclose the relationship, establish appropriate boundaries. It'll be fine. Vivian sounded more confident than Noah felt. Unless you're worried about people knowing. No, I'm proud to be with you. I just don't want you catching heat from the board. Let me worry about the board. They don't get a vote in my personal life. They talked for another hour, making tentative plans. A real date, dinner at an actual restaurant where they didn't have to hide. Meeting each other's people. Vivian wanted to properly meet Mrs. Chen. Noah wanted to be introduced to Vivian's small circle of friends. Taking Ethan to do something fun together, the three of them building the foundation of whatever family structure they might become. It was terrifying and exciting and felt like jumping off that cliff Noah had mentioned. But for the first time in 18 months, he wasn't jumping alone. The following Tuesday brought the first real test of their new status. Noah arrived at work to find the office buzzing with unusual energy. David practically pounced on him before he'd even reached his desk. Did you hear? Board meeting this morning. Apparently there's drama. Noah's stomach dropped. What kind of drama? Not sure. But Morrison said it involves Ms. Cross personally, some kind of conflict of interest accusation? David's eyes were alight with gossip. I'm betting it's that Marcus Hale guy. He's been trying to undermine her for years. Noah kept his expression neutral, but his mind raced. Marcus, Jacob's business partner, the man who'd been calling Vivian every anniversary to remind her of her failures. His phone buzzed. Can you come to my office? Now, if possible. Noah made an excuse to David and headed to the 14th floor, heart pounding. Vivian's assistant waved him through, her expression sympathetic in a way that made Noah's anxiety spike. Vivian was standing at her window, rigid with tension. She turned when Noah entered, and he saw the fury in her eyes. Marcus filed a formal complaint with the board, claims I'm emotionally compromised and making poor business decisions due to personal distractions. Her voice was ice cold. He specifically mentioned seeing us together at the Bluebird Cafe, suggested our relationship is inappropriate and potentially harmful to the company. Noah felt his world tilt. How does he even know about us? Because he's been having me followed, apparently. Hired a private investigator to document my unstable behavior. Vivian handed Noah a folder. Inside were photos. The two of them at the cafe, entering her house, one grainy shot of them kissing on her doorstep. He presented this to the board this morning as evidence that I'm not fit to lead Meridian. That's insane. Your personal life has nothing to do with your job performance. Tell that to the board. 3 members are calling for my immediate resignation. 2 more want a formal review of my fitness to serve. Vivian's hands were shaking. Marcus is positioning himself to take over as CEO. Claims the company needs stable, focused leadership. Noah wanted to put his fist through a wall. What can I do? Nothing. This isn't your fight. Vivian met his eyes. Noah, I need you to understand. If we continue this relationship, it's going to get ugly. Marcus won't stop. The board might force me out. There could be media attention, scrutiny, all of it landing on you and Ethan too. So what are you saying? I'm saying I'll understand if you want to step back. Protect yourself and your son from this mess. Vivian's voice cracked. I care about you too much to let you get destroyed by my baggage. Noah crossed to her, taking both her hands. No. Noah, no, I'm not stepping back. I'm not stepping. I'm not letting some bitter man who can't handle his own grief dictate our lives. Noah's voice was firm. We just decided to really try this. I'm not giving up at the first sign of trouble. This isn't just trouble. This could cost me my career, could cost you yours too. Then we'll deal with it. Together. Noah squeezed her hands. You told me grief doesn't have to mean giving up on living. Well, I'm choosing to live. With you, whatever that means. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. You're sure? Completely. Noah pulled her close, holding her while she shook. What do you need from me? Just be here. Let me know I'm not facing this alone. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. I have to go to this board meeting, present my case, try to convince them that I'm stable and competent and not some grief-stricken disaster. You are stable and competent, and you're also human. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. Vivian managed a small smile. I'll remind them of that. When's the meeting? 20 minutes. Then let's review your talking points. What's your strategy? They spent the next 15 minutes preparing. Vivian would acknowledge the relationship, emphasize that it was disclosed to HR, point out that her job performance hadn't suffered. In fact, the company was having its best quarter in 3 years. She'd address the grief head-on, turn it from a weakness into evidence of her humanity and resilience, and she'd make it clear that Marcus's vendetta was personal, not professional. You've got this, Noah said as Vivian gathered her materials. You're brilliant and strong, and they'd be idiots to let you go. Thank you, Vivian kissed him quickly. No matter what happens, thank you for not running. After she left, Noah returned to his desk in a daze. David took one look at his face and whistled low. What happened to you? You look like you've seen a ghost. Just work stuff, nothing important. Noah pulled up his computer, trying to focus on the quarterly reports that suddenly seemed monumentally insignificant. The next 3 hours were torture. Noah refreshed his email obsessively, jumped every time his phone buzzed, and accomplished exactly 0 productive work. David kept shooting him concerned looks, but mercifully didn't ask questions. At 2 o'clock, his phone finally rang. Vivian's name on the screen. Noah practically ran to an empty conference room before answering. Well? He asked without preamble. I still have my job, barely. Vivian sounded exhausted. The board voted to keep me on as CEO, but I'm on official probation for 6 months. They'll be monitoring my performance closely, and any slip-ups will be grounds for immediate termination. But you're staying. I'm staying, though I had to make some concessions. Vivian's voice was tight. I agreed to see a therapist, formally, with documentation provided to the board. I agreed to take a week of vacation time, and I had to acknowledge that my judgment might be compromised by grief and commit to being more transparent about my decision-making process. Noah felt his jaw clench. They're treating you like you're unstable. Because Marcus convinced 3 board members that I am. He painted a picture of a grieving widow who's making reckless decisions, using company time for personal matters, engaging in inappropriate relationships with subordinates. She laughed bitterly. That last one particularly resonated. Apparently dating an employee is evidence of poor judgment, even though it's not technically against policy. What about Marcus? Does he face any consequences for stalking you? He claims he was acting in the company's best interest, looking out for shareholder value. Vivian's frustration was palpable. The board thanked him for his vigilance. Noah wanted to drive to wherever Marcus was and have a very direct conversation. This is insane. This is corporate politics, and I've been playing this game long enough to know when I've lost a battle. Vivian sighed. But I won the war. I get to keep my position. I just have to prove I deserve it all over again. You shouldn't have to prove anything. Your track record speaks for itself. Unfortunately, grief makes people question everything about you. Suddenly, every decision is evidence of instability rather than strategy. Vivian's voice softened. But Noah, thank you for standing with me through that meeting. Even though you weren't there, knowing you were on my side made it bearable. Always. I'm always on your side. I know, and that means more than you can imagine. Vivian paused. Listen, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Noah's stomach tightened. Okay. Is this worth it? All of this drama, the scrutiny, the risk to your career, and Ethan's stability, is being with me worth all that? Yes. Noah didn't hesitate. Absolutely yes. You didn't even think about it. I don't need to. I've spent 18 months not living because it felt safer than risking more pain. But safe isn't the same as happy, and you make me happy. Noah leaned against the conference room wall. So yes, it's worth it. Every complication, every risk, all of it. He heard Vivian's breath hitch. I don't deserve you. That's grief talking. The same voice that tells you that you didn't deserve Jacob and Emma. Noah's voice was gentle but firm. Stop listening to it. You deserve happiness just as much as anyone else. I'm trying to believe that. Keep trying. I'll keep reminding you until you do. They talked for a few more minutes before Vivian had to return to back-to-back meetings. Noah went back to his desk, mind churning. The relationship that had started as two broken people finding comfort had just gotten infinitely more complicated. Board scrutiny. Marcus's vendetta. The pressure on Vivian to prove herself while also dealing with enforced therapy and vacation. Part of him wondered if they should step back, make things easier on both of them. But a larger part, the part that had been deadened since Sarah died and was only now coming back to life, refused to give up something that felt this right. That evening, Noah picked up Ethan from daycare and headed to the park instead of going straight home. His son needed to run off energy, and Noah needed to think. Daddy, push me higher, Ethan called from the swing set. Noah obliged, watching his son pump his legs and laugh with pure joy. When had Ethan last been this carefree? When had Noah last felt capable of providing this kind of uncomplicated happiness? Ethan, can I talk to you about something? Okay. Ethan dragged his feet to slow the swing. Are we in trouble? No, buddy. Nothing like that. Noah sat on the swing next to his son. Remember how you asked if Vivian was my girlfriend? Uh-huh. Is she now? She is. Which means... Noah searched for age-appropriate words. Which means we're going to spend more time with her. Maybe have her over to our place sometimes. She might be around more. Ethan's face lit up. Can she bring chocolate cake? Noah laughed, despite his anxiety. Probably. But this also means some things might change. People at my work know about Vivian and me now. Some of them aren't happy about it. Why not? Because it's complicated. Vivian is my boss, kind of. And some people think that makes our relationship inappropriate. Noah struggled to explain corporate politics to a 4-year-old. The point is, there might be some stress for a while, but I need you to know you're my first priority, always. Ethan reached over and patted Noah's arm. It's okay, Daddy. I know you love me best. The simple confidence in his son's voice made Noah's chest ache. You're pretty amazing, you know that? I know. Ethan grinned. Can we get ice cream now? They got ice cream, then they went home and made dinner together. Well, Noah made dinner while Ethan helped by arranging the plates and providing commentary on everything. It was normal and domestic and exactly what Noah needed after the chaos of the day. After Ethan was in bed, Noah called Vivian. How are you holding up? He asked. Better now that I'm home. Today was... She exhaled slowly. It was one of the hardest days I've had since the accident. Having to sit in that boardroom and defend my competence while they examined photos of us like evidence of a crime. I'm sorry. I hate that you had to go through that. Not your fault. Marcus has been waiting for an opening like this for years. I just gave him ammunition. Vivian's voice was bitter. Though I have to admit there's a certain irony. 5 years ago, he accused me of being too focused on work. Now he's saying I'm too distracted by my personal life. Apparently I can't win. What's his actual problem with you? Grief, mostly. He and Jacob were best friends before they became business partners. When Jacob died, Marcus, He needed someone to blame. I was the obvious target. Vivian was quiet for a moment. He once told me that I killed Jacob, that if I'd been there, if I'd gone on the trip, I might have noticed the truck driver drifting, might have said something that saved their lives. Noah felt rage surge through him. That's obscene. It's also what I tell myself every night. So hearing Marcus say it out loud just reinforced what I already believed. Vivian's laugh was hollow. The board knows about our history. They should have recused him from today's discussion. But Marcus is persuasive, and I'm the grieving widow who's apparently unstable. You're not unstable. You're traumatized. There's a difference. But try explaining that to a board of directors who care more about optics than humanity. Vivian sighed. Sorry, I'm being bitter. You're allowed. Today was awful. It was. But Noah? Her voice softened. Coming home and calling you, knowing I could be honest about how terrible it was, that helped. So thank you. They talked until midnight, conversation drifting from the board meeting to lighter topics. Ethan's new obsession with space. The book Vivian was reading, plans for the weekend, normal couple things that felt revolutionary after everything they'd been through. When they finally said goodnight, Noah lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The smart thing would be to step back, protect himself and Ethan from the fallout of Vivian's corporate drama. But the smart thing had never made him happy. The smart thing was safe and lonely and exactly what he'd been doing since Sarah died. He pulled out his phone and sent one more text. I meant what I said earlier. This is worth it. You're worth it. N. The response came immediately. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. Sleep well. V. Noah did sleep well, for the first time all week, because he'd made a choice. Not the safe one, not the smart one, but the one that felt right. And sometimes, right mattered more than smart. The next few days brought unexpected developments. First, HR called Noah in for a meeting where they formally documented his relationship with Vivian, established that it was consensual and disclosed appropriately, and outlined the boundaries they'd need to maintain at work. It was awkward but professional. Second, word spread through the office with the speed of wildfire. By Thursday, everyone knew that Noah Mercer from finance was dating the CEO. David's reaction was exactly as expected. Are you insane? He hissed over lunch. You're dating Vivian Cross? The Vivian Cross? Apparently. How did this even happen? When did this happen? David looked like his entire worldview had been shattered. You're a mid-level analyst. I know who she is, David. And you're just casually dating her? It's not casual. Noah met his friend's eyes. It's actually pretty serious and complicated, and none of your business, frankly. David sat back, reassessing. Wow. Okay. So this is real. Very real. And you're happy? The question surprised Noah. He thought about it honestly. Yeah, I am. For the first time since Sarah died, I'm actually happy. David's expression softened. Then I'm happy for you, man. Even if this is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Vivian Cross. Wow. The reaction from the rest of the office ranged from shock to curiosity to barely concealed jealousy. A few people made snide comments about sleeping your way to the top, which Noah ignored. Most were just surprised that their grieving, closed-off colleague had somehow ended up in a relationship with the most powerful person in the company. By Friday, Noah was exhausted from the attention. He was relieved when Vivian texted, suggesting they skip their usual coffee date and just meet at her place after work. He arrived to find her in the kitchen, already cooking. She looked tired, but determined. Rough week? Noah asked, kissing her hello. Understatement. Vivian returned to stirring something on the stove. But I survived. We both did. Barely. Barely counts. She managed a smile. I also made a decision about Emma's room. Noah felt his heart skip. Yeah? I want to start going through it. Tomorrow, if you're free. I know you offered to help, and I think I'm ready. Vivian's hands were shaking slightly. Or at least, I'm ready to try. I'm free. Ethan has a play date with Mrs. Chen's grandson, so it's just me. Perfect. Vivian turned off the stove and faced him. Thank you for still being here after everything this week. I know it would have been easier to walk away. Easier isn't always better. Noah pulled her close. Besides, I'm pretty invested in this now. You're stuck with me. Good, because I'm pretty invested too. Vivian tilted her face up for a kiss. Now, are you hungry? I made lamb tagine, and I desperately need to think about something other than board meetings and Marcus's vendetta. They ate dinner talking about everything except work. Vivian told him about the therapist the board was requiring her to see, a woman who specialized in grief and trauma, who actually seemed to understand rather than just pathologize. Noah shared Ethan's latest theory about dinosaurs living on the moon. They made plans for the weekend, for the following week, building a future one conversation at a time. It felt normal, or as normal as anything could feel when you were two people still learning how to live with loss. But normal was good. Normal was progress. After dinner, they curled up on the couch together. Vivian rested her head on Noah's shoulder, his arm around her, and they simply existed in the quiet comfort of each other's presence. I've been thinking about what you said, Vivian murmured, about honoring the people we lost by doing better now. Being present. And I think you're right. I can't change the past. Can't go back and choose differently. But I can choose how I move forward. She lifted her head to look at him. I want to move forward with you, whatever that looks like. Even with all the complications? Especially with all the complications. Because the alternative is staying stuck. And I'm tired of being stuck. Vivian's smile was small but genuine. You've helped me see that grief doesn't have to be the end of my story. It's just a chapter, a painful one, but not the whole book. Noah kissed her forehead. You've helped me see that too, that it's possible to honor what we lost while still reaching for what we might gain. They sat in comfortable silence, both thinking about tomorrow, about Emma's room and the difficult work of letting go, about the choice to move forward even when it hurt, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, they could build something good from the wreckage of their losses. Outside, the city continued its endless motion. Inside, two people who'd been drowning in grief found themselves learning to breathe again, together. And that, somehow, felt like enough. Saturday morning arrived with autumn sunshine and the weight of what they were about to do. Noah dropped Ethan at Mrs. Chen's apartment, endured her knowing looks and whispered encouragements, then drove to Thornhill Drive with his stomach in knots. Vivian answered the door in old jeans and a faded sweatshirt, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked young and vulnerable and terrified. I almost called you 3 times to cancel, she admitted, leading him inside. But you didn't. No, because I need to do this, for me. For Emma. Vivian paused at the bottom of the stairs. For us. They climbed to the second floor in silence. Outside Emma's door, Vivian's hand trembled on the knob. We can stop any time, Noah reminded her. 1 box, 1 drawer. Whatever you can handle. Vivian nodded, took a breath, and opened the door. The room looked exactly as it had weeks ago, frozen in time, thick with dust and memory. But this time, they'd come prepared. Noah had brought boxes, garbage bags, packing tape. Vivian had made lists of local charities that accepted children's items. Where do we start? She asked, voice barely a whisper. Wherever feels right. Noah took her hand. There's no wrong way to do this. Vivian moved to the bookshelf first, running her fingers along the spines. Emma loved to read. We'd spend hours in here, going through book after book. She'd make me do all the voices. A sad smile crossed her face. I was terrible at it, but she didn't care. She pulled out a worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are and opened it. Inside the cover, childish handwriting proclaimed, This book belongs to Emma Cross, age 5.5. I want Ethan to have this one too, Vivian said. If that's okay, Emma would like knowing another child was enjoying her books. He'd treasure it. Noah found a box and labeled it for Ethan in careful letters. They worked slowly, methodically. Each book prompted a memory. This one was Emma's favorite, that one she'd insisted on reading every night for 3 months straight. Vivian cried through some of it, laughed through other parts, and gradually the bookshelf emptied. Some books went to Ethan, others to charity, a precious few Vivian set aside to keep. I don't need all of them, she said, more to herself than Noah. Keeping everything doesn't bring her back, but these, she touched the small stack she'd chosen. These are the ones that mattered most, the ones we read together so many times I have them memorized. Next came the closet, tiny dresses and shoes, jackets Emma had outgrown, the princess costume she'd worn for a week straight. Vivian held each piece, remembering when Emma had worn it, then carefully folded it into the boxes for donation. Some child will love these, she said, tears streaming down her face as she packed a sparkly purple dress. Emma would want them to be loved, not gathering dust. The stuffed animals were harder. Mr. Hoppy the rabbit, the one Emma had forgotten on the trip, Vivian couldn't bring herself to give away. But the others, dozens of them, accumulated over 6 short years, she sorted carefully. Keep the special ones, Noah suggested. The ones with stories attached. The rest can make other kids happy. By lunchtime, they'd filled 6 boxes and 2 garbage bags. The room was starting to look different, less like a shrine, more like a space in transition. Vivian sat on the floor surrounded by the remaining items, exhausted but determined. I need to tell you something, she said, about the day of the accident. Noah settled beside her, waiting. The night before they left, Jacob and I fought. About work, about priorities, about all the things we'd fought about 100 times before. Vivian's voice was steady but pained. He said I was choosing my career over my family. I said he was being unfair, that I was building a future for all of us. He said, what good was a future if we never spent any time together in the present? Vivian, let me finish. I need to say this. She took a shaky breath. We went to bed angry. He left early the next morning while I was already in the shower, getting ready for that board meeting. Emma came to say goodbye, crying because Mommy and Daddy had been fighting. I told her everything was fine, that grown-ups sometimes disagreed, but it didn't mean anything. I promised we'd all have a special day when I joined them at the beach house. Noah squeezed her hand. That was the last conversation I had with my daughter. I sent her off on a trip while her parents were fighting, promising her a special day that would never come. Vivian's composure cracked. And the last thing I said to Jacob was the night before, something cutting about how he didn't understand the pressure I was under. He died thinking I cared more about work than him. You don't know that, don't I? I chose that board meeting over them. I chose it knowing Jacob was hurt, knowing Emma was upset. I made the same choice I'd been making for years. Vivian looked at Noah with devastated eyes. How do I live with that? How do I forgive myself for that? Noah was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. Sarah and I fought the morning she died. About something stupid. I'd forgotten to pick up groceries, she was stressed about a work deadline, and we snapped at each other. She left on her bike angry. I went to work angry, and then she was gone, and I never got to apologize. What did you do? I tortured myself for months, replayed that morning over and over, changing my responses, imagining different outcomes. My therapist finally asked me, if Sarah could speak to you now, would she want you to spend the rest of your life punishing yourself for one bad morning? Noah met Vivian's eyes. The answer was no. Sarah loved me. She knew I loved her. One fight didn't erase 6 years of marriage. But I didn't have one fight with Jacob. I had hundreds. Years of choosing work over family. And years of providing for them. Of building a company that gave them security and comfort. Of doing what you thought was best for everyone. Noah took both her hands. You weren't perfect. Neither was Jacob. That's what marriage is. 2 imperfect people trying to build something together. Sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding, but always trying. Vivian cried then, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. Noah held her while she grieved not just for her lost family, but for the mother and wife she wished she'd been. For all the choices she couldn't unmake and apologies she'd never get to offer. When the tears finally slowed, Vivian pulled back and looked around the half-empty room. I've been keeping this space exactly as it was because I thought it was honoring Emma, but really, I was punishing myself, living in a museum of my own guilt. And now? Now I think Emma would want her things to be useful, to make other children happy. She had such a generous heart. Vivian's smile was watery but genuine. She'd be furious that I've been hoarding her books when other kids could be reading them. They worked through the afternoon, taking breaks when the emotions became too overwhelming. Noah made sandwiches while Vivian sat in the room, saying quiet goodbyes to each section they cleared. The art projects came down from the walls. Some were kept, most were photographed, and then released. The desk was emptied, crayons and markers donated, papers sorted into piles of absolute treasures, and beautiful but expendable creations. By evening, the room was nearly empty. Just the furniture, Mr. Hoppy on the bed, and a few carefully chosen items that Vivian couldn't bear to part with. It looked different, sad, but also somehow hopeful, a space that could become something new instead of remaining frozen in the past. "What will you do with it?" Noah asked as they stood in the doorway surveying their work. "I don't know yet. Maybe a reading room, maybe just a guest room. Something that honors Emma's memory without being a shrine." Vivian leaned against him. "Does that make me a terrible mother, changing her room?" "It makes you human, and it makes you someone who's choosing to live instead of just exist." Noah wrapped his arm around her. "Emma would be proud of you." "I hope so." Vivian looked at the boxes stacked in the hallway. "Thank you for being here, for not letting me do this alone." "Always." They carried the donation boxes to Vivian's car, loading them carefully for the trip to the Children's Center on Monday. The boxes for Ethan went into Noah's trunk, and the small pile of keepsakes went back to Emma's room. No longer a frozen memorial, just precious reminders of a life deeply loved. That evening, exhausted and emotionally raw, they ordered takeout and ate on Vivian's couch. The house felt different somehow, lighter, despite the weight of what they'd done. Like something that had been holding its breath could finally exhale. "Marcus called again," Vivian said, picking at her noodles. "Left a message saying he heard I was making changes to Emma's room and that I was disrespecting her memory." Noah's jaw clenched. "How does he even know?" "I don't know, but he's obsessed with controlling how I grieve, like he's the guardian of Jacob and Emma's legacy." Vivian set down her food. "I need to confront him, directly, end this once and for all." "What will you say?" "The truth. That he doesn't get to police my grief. That his anger at me is really anger at the universe for taking his best friend." Vivian's voice was steady. "And that if he continues harassing me, I'll pursue legal action. Do you want me there?" "No. This is something I need to do alone." She managed a small smile. "But knowing you're supporting me, that helps." Monday morning brought a surprise. Noah was at his desk reviewing reports when his phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. "Marcus is in my office. Come to the 14th floor. I need a witness." Noah's heart raced as he took the elevator up. Vivian's assistant looked worried but waved him through. Inside the office, Marcus Hale stood by the window, a tall man in his 50s with silver hair and cold eyes. "Mr. Mercer," Marcus said, voice dripping with disdain. "How convenient. The boyfriend arrives." "Marcus, you called this meeting." Vivian's voice was ice. "Say what you came to say." Marcus turned to face them both. "I'm here because someone needs to protect Jacob and Emma's memory, since you clearly won't." "Protect their memory from what, exactly?" Vivian stepped forward. "From me living my life? From me choosing to move forward? From you dishonoring everything they meant by replacing them with him?" Marcus gestured at Noah dismissively. "You're dating an employee, Vivian. An unremarkable middle manager who you've known for what, a few months? Jacob's barely been gone 5 years and you're already—" "Stop." Vivian's voice cracked like a whip. "You don't get to tell me how long to grieve. You don't get to decide when I'm allowed to be happy again, and you certainly don't get to judge my choices. I'm Jacob's best friend. You were Jacob's best friend, past tense, because Jacob is dead." Vivian's words were brutal but necessary. "And while I'm sorry that you lost him too, your grief doesn't give you the right to torture me with mine." Marcus's face flushed red. "I'm trying to honor his memory." "No, you're trying to punish me because you're angry." "Angry that they died, angry that I survived, angry that I'm CEO, and you're not." Vivian moved closer to him. "But here's the truth, Marcus. I didn't kill Jacob and Emma. A truck driver who fell asleep did. I made mistakes, yes. I should have been there. But I didn't cause the accident. You sent them away. You chose work over them. And I'll live with that choice for the rest of my life. But I won't let you weaponize my guilt anymore. Vivian's voice was shaking but determined. Jacob loved me. Even when I was imperfect, even when I made mistakes, he loved me. And he would want me to be happy. He'd want me to move forward. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because the night before he left, even though we fought, Jacob told me he loved me. He told me he understood the pressure I was under. He said we'd figure it out together when he got back. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. Those were his last words to me. We'll figure it out together. He was offering me grace, Marcus. The same grace you've refused to give me for 5 years. Marcus looked stricken. He said that? He did. And I've held on to it like a lifeline, even as you've spent 5 years telling me I killed him. Vivian's voice broke. So I'm done. Done defending myself to you, done letting you dictate how I grieve, done caring whether you approve of my choices. Vivian, no. You need to leave. And you need to stop calling me, stop having me followed, stop filing complaints with the board. Because if you don't, I will pursue a restraining order, and I will make sure everyone knows exactly why. She moved to her desk, pulled out a folder. I've documented every harassing call, every accusation, every attempt to undermine me. My attorney has advised me that I have grounds for legal action. Marcus took the folder she offered, flipping through it with growing alarm. You're threatening me? I'm protecting myself. Something I should have done years ago. Vivian's voice was steady now. You're grieving, Marcus. I understand that. But your grief doesn't excuse your behavior. Get help. See a therapist. Find a healthy way to process losing Jacob. But leave me alone. Marcus looked between Vivian and Noah, something crumbling in his expression. He was my best friend, my brother. And you just moved on like he never existed. I didn't move on. I'm moving forward. There's a difference. Vivian's voice softened slightly. I'll never forget Jacob and Emma. I'll never stop missing them. But I also can't spend the rest of my life frozen in grief, and neither should you. Marcus stood there for a long moment, the folder trembling in his hands. Then quietly, I'm sorry. For the calls, for the PI, for the board complaint. I needed someone to blame. I know. I blamed myself for years, but blame doesn't bring them back. It just keeps us stuck. Vivian took a breath. I hope you find peace, Marcus. I really do. But you need to find it away from me. Marcus nodded slowly, looking suddenly old and defeated. I'll stop. The call's everything. You're right. I need help. Then get it. For your sake and Jacob's memory. Vivian walked to the door, opening it. Goodbye, Marcus. He left without another word. Noah watched him go, then turned to Vivian. She was shaking, tears streaming down her face, but she was also standing taller than he'd ever seen her. That was incredible, Noah said. That was terrifying. Vivian collapsed into her desk chair. But necessary. I couldn't let him keep controlling my life. Noah moved around the desk, pulling her to her feet and into his arms. You were so strong, so clear, so absolutely right. I've been practicing that speech for a week, kept thinking about what you said, that grief doesn't have to mean giving up on living. She pulled back to look at him. You helped me see that I deserve happiness, that choosing to move forward isn't betraying the people I lost. You do deserve it, all of it. They stood there for a moment, holding each other in the middle of her office where this had all begun, where Noah had found her dancing alone, where they'd first been honest about their grief, where they'd started building something neither had expected. What happens now? Vivian asked. Now we keep going. Together. Noah kissed her softly. No more hiding, no more being careful. Just living. The next few weeks brought a subtle shift in their dynamic. With Marcus's harassment ended and the board satisfied by Vivian's therapy compliance, the pressure eased. They went public as a couple, attending a charity gala together, meeting each other's extended circles, building a life that incorporated both their worlds. Ethan adored having Vivian around more. She'd come to their apartment for dinner, help with bedtime stories, become a fixture in their routine. The three of them found their rhythm, movie nights on Fridays, breakfast together on Saturdays, the careful construction of something that resembled a family. One evening, 6 weeks after they'd cleared Emma's room, Vivian arrived at Noah's apartment with a proposal. "I want you and Ethan to see something," she said, barely containing her excitement. "At my house. Tonight, if possible." They drove to Thornhill Drive, Ethan chattering in the back seat about his day. When they arrived, Vivian led them upstairs to what had been Emma's room. The door was open. Inside, the space had been completely transformed. The walls were now painted a warm cream color. The furniture was different: comfortable chairs, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with books, a plush rug in the center. Soft lighting made the room feel cozy and inviting. And in the corner, on a small shelf, sat Mr. Hoppy and a few of Emma's favorite books, alongside a framed photo of Emma and Jacob. "It's a reading room," Vivian explained, her voice thick with emotion. "For all of us. I thought it could be a place where we read together, where Ethan can enjoy Emma's books, where we can honor her memory while also making new ones." Ethan ran to the shelves, examining the books with delight. "These are all for reading?" "All of them. I kept Emma's favorites, but I also added new ones. Books you might like." Vivian knelt beside him. Emma loved to read. I think she'd be happy knowing another child was enjoying stories in her special room. "Can we read now?" Ethan pulled out Where the Wild Things Are, the book Vivian had given him weeks ago. "Absolutely." Vivian settled into one of the chairs, and Ethan climbed into her lap. Noah sat in the other chair, watching them together, his heart so full it ached. Vivian read with all the voices, making Ethan giggle with her Wild Thing impressions. When the book ended, Ethan demanded another, then another. Noah joined them on the floor, the three of them sprawled on the plush rug, surrounded by books and laughter, and the feeling of home. Later, after Ethan had fallen asleep in the car on the way back and Noah had carried him inside, Vivian lingered at the door. "Thank you," Noah said, "for including us in that, for making Emma's room into something beautiful instead of sad. Thank you for helping me see that I could, that changing things didn't mean forgetting." Vivian touched his face gently. "I've been thinking about the future, about what I want. And what do you want?" "This, you and Ethan, more nights reading together, more dinners, more of everything." She paused. "I know it's only been a few months. I know we're both still healing, but Noah, I'm falling in love with you. Probably already have fallen, and I needed you to know." Noah felt his breath catch. The words scared him and thrilled him in equal measure. "I'm falling in love with you too. Have been for weeks. I just didn't know if I was allowed to feel this way again. We're allowed. We're allowed to grieve and love and be happy and sad all at once." Vivian smiled through tears. "Life isn't either or. It's messy and complicated and full of contradictions." "Then I guess we're doing it right." Noah pulled her close, kissing her with all the emotion he'd been holding back. "I love you, Vivian Cross. You and your grief and your strength and your chocolate cake and everything." Vivian laughed against his mouth. "I love you too, Noah Mercer. You and Ethan and your terrible spaghetti and your kindness and everything." They stood in his doorway, holding each other while the city hummed around them. Two people who'd been drowning in separate griefs had found each other in the darkness and chosen to swim toward the light together. 3 months later, on a Saturday morning in early December, Noah woke to find Ethan jumping on his bed. "Daddy, Vivian's here, and she brought pancakes." Noah stumbled to the kitchen to find Vivian at the stove, looking completely at home in his apartment. She'd started staying over occasionally, her presence becoming more permanent with each visit. Her toothbrush lived in his bathroom now. Her favorite coffee mug had its own spot in his cabinet. "Good morning," she said, kissing him. "I hope it's okay I used my key. Ethan let me know he was starving approximately 37 times. "I was very hungry," Ethan confirmed seriously. They ate breakfast together, the three of them, and Noah marveled at how normal this had become. How right it felt to have Vivian here, to build this life with her, to watch Ethan bond with someone who understood loss but chose joy anyway. After breakfast, while Ethan played in his room, Noah pulled out a small box he'd been carrying around for weeks. I have something for you, he said to Vivian. She opened it to find a key, not to his apartment, but to something else. Attached was a small tag that read, "For when you're ready." It's a storage unit, Noah explained. I rented it last week for Jacob and Emma's things. The items you're not quite ready to part with, but don't need in your house anymore. He paused. I thought maybe having a place to keep their memories without living in them might help. You can visit whenever you want, but they don't have to fill your home anymore. Vivian stared at the key, tears streaming down her face. This is perfect. How did you know? Because I did the same thing with Sarah's belongings. Put them somewhere safe so I could visit when I needed to, but they weren't surrounding me every day. Noah took her hand. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, but the option is there. Vivian kissed him deeply. I love you. Have I mentioned that recently? Not in the last hour. Well, I do, desperately. She held the key carefully. Will you come with me? When I move things, I think I'm ready to turn the house into a home again instead of a museum. Of course. They spent the afternoon at Thornhill Drive, carefully boxing up the remaining items that had been scattered throughout the house. Jacob's clothes from the closet, Emma's artwork from the refrigerator, the wedding photos that had covered every surface. Not all of it. Vivian kept some pieces, the ones that brought comfort instead of pain. But most went into boxes, labeled and stored with care. By evening, the house looked different, lighter, more like a space where someone actually lived rather than a shrine to the past. Vivian stood in the middle of her living room, looking around with wonder. I can breathe in here now, she said. For the first time in 5 years, I can actually breathe. That night, they made dinner together in Vivian's kitchen. Noah, Vivian, and Ethan working as a team. The meal was chaotic and slightly burnt and absolutely perfect. They ate at the table that had once been set for ghosts, but now was filled with laughter and conversation and the messy reality of life moving forward. After Ethan went to sleep in the guest room, which had become his unofficial bedroom at Vivian's house, Noah and Vivian sat on the couch, wrapped in each other's arms. I've been thinking about the future, Vivian said. About us. About what this looks like long term. Noah's heart picked up speed. Yeah? I don't want to rush anything. We're both still healing, still figuring this out. But Noah, I can see a future with you, with Ethan, a real future. She looked up at him. Is that crazy? To be thinking about that already? No, it's hopeful. Noah kissed her forehead. And I've been thinking the same thing, about what it would mean to build a life together. Really together. Not yet, Vivian said quickly. I'm not saying we should move in together tomorrow or anything like that, but maybe we could start talking about it, about what that might look like. I'd like that. Noah pulled her closer. Though, fair warning, Ethan's already asked when you're moving in permanently. He wants to know if you'll bring the chocolate cake recipe. Vivian laughed. Of course that's his priority. They talked late into the night, sketching out possibilities. Not concrete plans, both were too cautious for that, but ideas, dreams, the shape of a future that honored their pasts while still reaching forward. 6 months after that night in Vivian's office, on a warm May evening, they gathered at Thornhill Drive for a special occasion. Vivian had invited Noah, Ethan, Mrs. Chen, and a few close friends. In the backyard, she'd set up a small memorial garden, a quiet space with a bench, flowering plants, and 2 small plaques engraved with Jacob and Emma's names. I wanted a place to remember them that felt alive instead of frozen, Vivian explained to the gathered group. A garden that grows and changes with the seasons. That requires care and attention. That's beautiful and sad and hopeful all at once. They planted flowers together, Ethan helping to dig holes, Mrs. Chen offering advice on which plants would thrive, Noah working quietly beside Vivian as she placed each bloom with care. When they finished, Vivian stood before the memorial and spoke quietly. Jacob and Emma, you were my whole world. Losing you broke me in ways I didn't think I could survive. But I did survive. And I'm learning that surviving can mean more than just existing. It can mean living, really living. She looked at Noah, at Ethan, at the people who'd become her new family. I'll never forget you. I'll never stop missing you. But I'm also choosing to be happy again. to love again, to build a life that honors your memory while still being fully mine. Noah stepped forward, taking her hand. Ethan joined them, wrapping his small arms around both their legs. And in that moment, surrounded by flowers and friends, and the people who'd helped her heal, Vivian finally felt something she hadn't felt in 5 years. Pete. The months that followed brought their own challenges and joys. Vivian's probation with the board ended with glowing reviews. Her performance had never been stronger, her leadership more assured. She credited therapy and the support of people who loved her. The board, satisfied that she was stable and focused, stopped their scrutiny. Noah received a promotion at work, moving into a senior analyst role that came with better hours and more flexibility for family time. The irony wasn't lost on him. Dating the CEO had actually made him a better employee, more motivated and engaged than he'd been since Sarah's death. Ethan started kindergarten, adjusting with the resilience of a child who'd already survived so much loss. He drew pictures of his family that now included 3 people: Daddy, Vivian, and sometimes a small figure he labeled as Mommy watching from a cloud. His teacher called it healthy processing. Noah called it breaking his heart in the best possible way. 1 year after their first midnight encounter, on another August 14th, Noah found himself back in Vivian's office after hours. But this time, it wasn't by accident. "I thought we could start a new tradition," he said, pulling her to her feet. "Instead of dancing alone with your grief, we dance together. We remember Jacob and Emma. We remember Sarah. But we also celebrate that we're here, that we survived, that we found each other." Vivian's eyes filled with tears. "I'd like that." Noah pulled up music on his phone, something slow and gentle. They swayed together in the middle of her office, the city glittering behind them just as it had a year ago. But everything was different now. They weren't strangers united by grief. They were partners building a life together. "I have something for you," Vivian said as the song ended. She pulled a small box from her desk drawer. Inside was a key to her house. "I want you and Ethan to move in. Not tomorrow, not next week, but when you're ready. I want us to be a family. A real, official, live-together family." Noah stared at the key, feeling the weight of what she was offering. A home. A future. A family built from the wreckage of loss. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I've never been more sure of anything." Vivian's smile was radiant. "You and Ethan. You've given me back my life. I want to share it with you, all of it." Noah pulled her close, the key pressed between their palms. "Then yes. Absolutely yes. We'll work out the details, make sure Ethan's ready, do it right. But yes." They sealed the promise with a kiss, both crying, both laughing, both impossibly grateful for the midnight encounter that had changed everything. 2 months later, on a crisp October Saturday, Noah and Ethan officially moved into Thornhill Drive. Mrs. Chen supervised the move with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been predicting this outcome for months. "I told you," she crowed as movers carried boxes inside. "I told you that dinner was a date." Noah laughed, too happy to argue. Ethan raced through the house, claiming the guest room as his official bedroom, delighted by the reading room and the backyard, and the fact that Vivian's kitchen always had chocolate cake ingredients. That night, their first official night as a family under one roof, they made dinner together. It was chaotic. Ethan spilled juice, Noah burned the garlic bread. Vivian had to referee a dispute about whether dinosaurs would like chocolate cake. It was messy and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. After Ethan was tucked into bed in his new room, surrounded by his things and Emma's books living in harmony, Noah and Vivian stood in the backyard by the memorial garden. "Do you think they'd approve?" Vivian asked, looking at the plaques. "Jacob and Emma? Of us? I think they'd want you to be happy, just like Sarah would want that for me." Noah wrapped his arm around her. "We're not replacing them. We're just continuing, living the lives they'd want us to live." "I like that." Vivian leaned into him. "Continuing, not forgetting, just moving forward." They stood there for a while, the autumn air cool against their skin, the house behind them warm with light and life. Inside, Ethan slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that he was loved and safe. The memorial garden bloomed with late-season flowers, a living tribute to the people they'd lost. This was healing, Noah realized. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of joy alongside it. Not forgetting the past, but building a future that honored it while still being fully alive. Vivian turned to face him, moonlight catching in her dark hair. "Thank you," she whispered, "for showing up that night, for not running away when you saw me at my worst, for choosing to stay. Thank you for letting me in, for trusting me with your grief, for building this life with me." Noah cupped her face in his hands. "I love you, Vivian Cross. You and your strength and your vulnerability and your ability to make chocolate cake that renders my son speechless." She laughed, the sound pure and joyful. "I love you too, Noah Mercer. You and Ethan, and your terrible spaghetti and your kind heart and everything." They kissed under the stars, two people who'd been broken finding wholeness in each other. Not perfect, not healed completely. Grief didn't work like that. But healing, growing, choosing life and love and hope over the darkness that had almost consumed them both. Inside the house, in the reading room that had once been a shrine, Mr. Hoppy sat on his shelf next to Mr. Elephant. Old memories and new ones living together in harmony, just like the people in the house below, honoring the past while building a future. Sometimes grief looked like dancing alone at midnight. Sometimes it looked like crying in cafes and clearing out rooms that held too many ghosts. But sometimes, the best times, it looked like three people making dinner together, reading stories before bed, and building a family from the pieces of broken hearts. Noah and Vivian had both learned that love didn't diminish when shared, that you could hold space for the people you'd lost while still opening your heart to the people you'd found, that healing wasn't about forgetting or replacing, but about integrating loss into the fabric of a life still worth living. They went inside together, checking on Ethan one more time before heading to bed. He was fast asleep, a small smile on his face. Mr. Elephant clutched tight. Tomorrow, they'd wake up as a family. They'd make breakfast together, maybe visit the memorial garden, definitely eat chocolate cake for dessert. They'd build routines and traditions, weather conflicts and celebrations, navigate the beautiful mess of blended lives and blended grief. But tonight, they simply existed in the quiet gratitude of having found each other, of having survived the worst and chosen to reach for something better, of understanding that sometimes the greatest act of honoring the dead was choosing to fully live. In the bedroom that Vivian now shared with Noah, they fell asleep wrapped around each other. Two people who'd been drowning alone had learned to swim together. Two people who'd lost everything had found something worth holding on to. And in the morning, they'd wake up and do it all over again. Because that's what healing looked like. Not a destination reached, but a choice made every single day. The choice to continue, to grow, to love, to live.